Oh, is the current scene you're streaming like muted for voice input? Or should we be able to hear ourselves? Ah, never mind. I can hear myself, but not you. Yeah. Yeah, your voice is missing. Yeah.
Hear me now? Yeah.
Mm.
There?
Ah, yes.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah. I
Yes,
had to
now it's working.
just change some things on the settings. Okay. So I'm gonna yeah, let's just do it like this. Hey guys, to those who have just joined us, we're waiting for Javier.
Hello.
Oh, you're
There
here.
he is.
Oh, just in
How are
time.
you?
Good man.
Hey, nice.
Let me.
Yeah. How are you guys today?
Great.
Good.
Let me.
Having a
Just perfect.
having a nice cup of wine, or is that tea in wine? In a wine glass, guy.
Well, if you're asking this while we are live, I gotta say it's water, probably a bit yellowish.
I would say that's
But other
apple
than that,
juice.
it tastes like wine. It's crazy, but it's not.
I would say that's apple juice more than.
I'm having tea.
Okay, that's good.
Oh wait, is that really tea?
Yeah, no, it is. It is tea. It is tea, peach tea.
All right.
Nice. So what wine you like?
Honestly, I have no idea what I'm drinking here. My wife actually has a lot of knowledge about it, and she buys all the good stuff. And she's usually like, "This one is going to taste you, and this one is going to not taste you." And usually she's right, so I just drink what she says that I probably like.
Nice. That's awesome. I don't drink wine particularly, but my area is I mean, not specifically my area, but this country is very a wine producing country, so I should know more about wine, I guess.
Well, I should know more myself as well. I like this small village where I come from is actually the biggest wine area on the Mosel, like this river that crosses Germany and France. And we are right next to the oldest wine village in, I think, whole Europe.
That's crazy.
But I have literally no idea. Like in my childhood, I was I don't know how they're called, like these really crazy slopes where you grow the wine on the mountains.
Yes,
like
I know what you
really
mean.
steep.
Don't know the names either, but
Yeah, that was like my holiday job, and I hated it.
there's actually one of those in the north of Spain, and they're crazy. Like let's see, wine slopes. Let's call it like that.
Actually.
Yeah. They're close to the sea, so it gives it like a very special. But you mean these?
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah, right. It looks just like my hometown.
Yeah. Yeah, the northern part of Spain is very it's very, I guess I'm not sure what the word would be, maybe continental, in the way the weather works, very Atlantic as well. So it's really nice. And
I mean, it's beautiful, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely one of my favorite parts of Spain. It rains all the time, but that's pretty awesome for me, honestly.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, these
I'll
things are-
interrupt you a little bit. So we're starting with the streaming.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm going to change the scene just so people can see us. We are also streaming on YouTube now, so it's easier for people. Let's see, because there's a small delay, and I want to check everything. The YouTube channel is looking great for now. Looks like it. So, guys, for those who are looking on Disney YouTube, let us know if you have any kind of problem with the sound or the video, and as well. If I can ask you this favor, Javier and Kai, please keep on site the chat of the podcast. We are on Discord as well, so we can do both things at the same time. So first thing before starting,
you want us to get the chat? Sorry.
Yeah,
for the chat on YouTube and on Discord.
No, you can do Discord. I'm doing YouTube by myself here. If you want to do those and both, and you can do both, that's all right. That would be great as well.
Awesome.
So let's get a little bit of explanation of why we are in YouTube today. Why did we change things? So the idea is to make this more accessible for everyone, yes, and to have like better ways of interacting that maybe Discord doesn't allow us, yes, and to also provide more content on YouTube that it's gonna be recorded and it's already saving in YouTube by itself. So there's not much of post-processing editing that we have to do for it as well. Now, what we're gonna do is that, as you can see, we are in a Discord stage, guys. This Discord stage is specifically for trainees and students on the FMA community. There's really not much difference between YouTube and this. The only thing is that maybe we're gonna be reading first Discord comments and portfolios, yes, and then we're gonna go for YouTube. Now, for another thing is we also add a tipping for highlighting messages on YouTube. Do not feel obliged to use it. Just use it if you really want to support this. There's no actual, we don't want you to push you into that direction. It's just if you want to have the option. So if you all guys are okay with it, we can start with the podcast. So today we are meeting together, let's say, sorry because of my English, for portfolio. And I have a really great and annoying question to start with, Javier. What is a portfolio?
Oh, okay. So we're getting right in. So
yeah,
what is a portfolio?
Mm-hmm.
So I think traditionally a portfolio is the way that artists or pretty much any person with a need to showcase their work. It's a platform for those people to pretty much showcase their work and send it to potential clients, employers, friends, schools, anything really, whoever you want to need, you need to show your work. So yeah, this platform could be ArtStation, it could be a website, and that's what I think about a portfolio.
That's great. Kai, do you agree, or do you have something else to take on it?
I agree, but there's one thing I want to mention right away. Having a portfolio on your own website might be a great thing. And I think like the longer you're in the business or the more professional you are, the more likely it is to have a own website. But I've seen numerous students that thought that their work would like be presented better if they had their own website built to present it there. And in most cases, it just went like really downhill because the website is poorly built or really hard accessible, and you kind of lose the actual purpose of the portfolio, to have easy access to your work, to see how you work, to see your art. So I would recommend, if you want to place your portfolio on your own website, take a lot of time really polishing it before you do that.
Indeed.
And rather stick to ArtStation or Behance or something else.
Yeah, in fact, there are several places where I have seen or used, I think, the portfolio. This is not only for job applications. It also happens with when you want to apply for universities. Maybe I don't remember if it was the Noman Academy that did this, but in order to apply for their studies, you had to send them a portfolio, if I'm not mistaken. So basically, your portfolio is in a way as they are saying in the chat, kind of like your artist passport, or let's say, ID card in a way. you know. So I like that you mentioned ArtStation, because I think that nowadays when we talk about portfolio, everyone thinks about ArtStation. So what is ArtStation? Because it's kind of messy in a way. I don't know if it's saying messy. It's kind of a mixture of things. And the main question for this is, ArtStation, is it a portfolio or a social media website? Because
Can be both.
It can be both.
I
Okay.
don't think there's I don't think it has to be a contradicting purpose. It could be a social media platform. It can also be a portfolio hosting website. I think for us artists, it's as Kai mentioned, it's a great platform for hosting your portfolio, because everyone in the arts community, in the 3D arts, concept art, in general digital arts community, is used to navigating ArtStation. So yeah, it's good for hosting portfolios because of that reason. Easy to use, everyone knows how to use it. But it's also a social media platform. It has all the man, we have to warm up here. It has all the characteristics of a social media platform: likes, follows, comments.
The
Which also
blogs,
makes
challenges.
it a great place. Exactly. Yeah, it also makes it a great place to establish small communities as well.
Yeah, making connections as well. And
Exactly.
I have a question here on the chat from Eduardo Martinez asking for the new app called Kara, which I make an account in it, and kind of took a look at it, but I really didn't go so deep in the subject. I don't know if you guys have taken a look at it right now.
Yeah. Well, it does look like the baby of ArtStation and Instagram. And the layout really, really reminds you of ArtStation. Like, I wouldn't say they stole their idea from it. And even if they did, it's okay, because ArtStation has a great layout. But I think the same with Kara as with Artgram, and what was there back then, as ArtStation had issues with featuring AI art. There was one more that just came out of the abyss. I don't remember what it's called, but they all have the same issue. And that is just that they need to compete against ArtStation. And people, as Javier said, are so used to using it or looking there for anything that you most likely will never reach the same amount of people there. And it might be a great way to display your art, nonetheless. But if you were to really work on a portfolio, like in a business or development way, it probably isn't the best place, as just fewer people are there to even come by your art. Like, that's just the nature of it, because now all three of us, we had to like Google for Kara, have a look. So there are three of us already who are not familiar with that platform or not using it frequently. And I think there is much, much more people missing out on it.
Yeah, I think that, personally speaking, ArtStation has something in particular, and it was the first thing to do it, and this is something combined with what you say, Javier. So ArtStation solves kind of a problem for us. Yeah, so you used to have for portfolio Behance before only, or you should have to make your own portfolio. Now the problem is when you go to Behance, you have tons of people that do art, and that's graphic design, web design, 3D modeling, you have of everything. Now ArtStation, when it launched, it was more like game art oriented. Now it's kind of getting a mix between, cinemas and other places, and that's all right. It's really fine. But it solved a problem for us as a community, where we have a place where to post our artwork, show it, and get in touch with different studios. Yes, so now ArtStation has the studio section, and in that same section, you can get in touch with our studios, or studios can get in touch with you. So it solved the problem of having to share your artwork or getting more notice for studios who are looking for specific artists for a specific project. Now, what Kara has, yes, is not, let's say, it's not solving a problem we have. And I think that's the main problem. So Kara right now it has a different layout, but works a little bit like the same like ArtStation. So it's just basically the same. But people have been using ArtStation for I don't know how many years, 6 to 10 years maybe. So it will be
10, 12,
sorry, how?
10 to 12 at this point, I think.
10 to 12 years. Okay, that's a lot of time. So people are really used to using ArtStation, and we all know ArtStation. We know ArtStation challenges. We know there's a lot of things going on with it. So changing from ArtStation to Kara, it's just really hard to do right now because Kara has to show that they can do something for us, yes, as artists and as their, let's say, customers that can really help us as well.
I think it does. I think Kara does solve or aims to solve a problem, which is the safety of artists on the internet. Like the safety of the intellectual property and actually a place to share with artists, with digital, I mean artists of any kind really, because they're pretty much open to any type of art. I've seen photographers in Kara. I've seen pretty much so I think they do have something new to add to the table, and they do that in the form of guidelines. So they have very strong guidelines, and I think it aims to provide safety to us as artists from menacing forces that we might be facing at this point. And I think we should give it time. ArtStation, when it launched, it did so in a very slow roll-off, and those of us who were lucky enough to get in early, we became quite accustomed to it, and I might fear like to say popular. We got a little popular in there. At least it felt like popularity. But yeah, I think the difference with Kara and what we expect from ArtStation, all these social media for artists type of conglomerate things, is that we expect this instant gratification that we get from posting our work and receiving feedback from it. But since a lot of people has really jumped into Kara, because you must understand that they're kind of bringing together a lot of people from DeviantArt. They're bringing a lot of people from ArtStation. They're bringing a lot of people from Twitter that weren't very happy with the policies from those platforms when it comes to AI. Now it feels like everyone all of a sudden is there, and it's very difficult to draw as much attention as you would draw with ArtStation. Like the one thing I've noticed with Kara is you publish whatever piece of work, and it doesn't matter. You don't even have time to be on the latest page for even a second, because everyone is posting art constantly. And I think at this point, safe thing to do in that regard is wait for everybody to go in, settle down. People are migrating their portfolios, migrating years and years and years of artwork. So it feels like there's a lot of people getting their work in there, and it's very difficult to get visibility. Like if we compare our numbers, like my numbers, I don't know, I publish a new piece, and in about 10 days to a month I might get 5,000 eyes on it, and when it comes to Kara, it's maybe 10 to 20 people looking at my work. So it's a very difficult situation, because with ArtStation and even with Polycount and other platforms, CG Society and even Discord, we are very, very used to getting a lot of eyes on our work. But when it comes to Kara, it doesn't feel like that, because I think there's not enough people looking for the amount of people that are actually posting the work. So I think we just need to give it some time, because I think it shows a lot of potential to actually. I think you asked before what a portfolio is, and for me, a portfolio doesn't only showcase hard skills, but also should showcase soft skills, like who are you as a person. And I think Kara could easily solve that problem with its Twitter style posting, of hey, I did this today, and sharing, whatever your thoughts are with the community. So I think it is solving a few problems. We just need to, like with every new social media, we just need to work on establishing a presence there. As you say a lot, building your brand in that particular platform.
So you mentioned something that was actually really interesting, and that's the next step of the question I was going to make. And I'm going to save another question related to AI for later, yes? But this is a question I always get a lot from students, and I think we have talked before. What should students upload to their portfolio? And if they are students on a university, should they upload all of their artwork from university, or should they work in new projects to then upload them again? This is a question, of course, for both of you. I mean, the three of us are educators as well, besides being game artists. So it's our question, you know. It's our right to answer as well. No, not right, but let's say our responsibility as well.
I would say that totally depends on what you were doing in university. For example, for my education part, which is really cool actually. Always in the 5th semester, you have to collaborate with all of your colleagues. Like we were about 100 people, and we were tasked to mimic how a AAA studio would run. Like we were introduced to different departments, and we had like the art lead, and we had the game design and 3D and stuff like this. And we also had some management and some people who were organizing like a mini Gamescom in a real how it's called, like a studio for television with a live event and all of that stuff. So we had like a whole production, which was awesome to learn about different things and how actually your later work would look like. But honestly, what I contributed to that and also the whole project in a total was be nothing that I would post today on my portfolio. I did it back then because I had nothing else to show, and I wanted to show anything to make myself like knowledgeable across other artists and to say, here I am, I'm doing stuff, and this is probably something that kind of reminds you of the work I usually do. But in terms of quality, it was nowhere near, and the amount I put into that project was also not really that what I was focusing on. On the other hand, I had some students. I even posted a portfolio a few days ago here on the server from Sabrina Feist. And like her degree project was such a perfect, like, how do you know, like a blueprint portfolio piece in order to get a job as a junior, in order to show how good actually you work with like just one simple focused project and not like 5, 6, 7, 8 environments and materials and stuff like that. But just quality over quantity. And she did that in her studies. So there is a huge contrast, and you got to differentiate and be honest to yourself if that what you made with colleagues or what you made yourself is actually worth it or beneficial for you to upload. Like it's highly dependable.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a very interesting question, because a portfolio, as we said before, serves many different purposes, and one of them could perfectly be networking, not just job seeking. I mean, networking is a huge first step for job seeking. So for me, it's a simple answer. Are you proud of the work? Then post it. Are you not proud of the work? Then you don't post it, because those connections that you're going to get from the work that you're proud, that you can break down and you can generate content from, it's a lot more powerful than, you know, just posting something because that's what you have to post. So I think for us artists, we never should forget about the first step, which is passion, and passion leads to proud. And if you're proud of a project, you should go ahead and post it. Obviously, at the very beginning, in general, because there's some scenarios where this isn't true, the first pieces of work, they're not going to be tremendously amazing in the eyes of maybe, you know, more seasoned professionals or artists who have been working in the industry for a long time. It's going to be amazing for you. I mean, it's very this is very idealistic, and I understand that, but I think it's true. You should be proud of what you post, and that's the main question you should be asking yourself. Are you proud of this work? Yes, then you post it, and you see what you get from that. And if you're paying attention what you get from the work you post, then you're gonna know what to post and what not to post. difficult because there might be insecurities in place, and you might not might post something, you don't get the attention that you see other people getting. So it's a very difficult conversation to have, especially with your own self. But I think in this industry, in specific with arts, nothing is set in stone, nothing is permanent, and nothing is super clear. So doing your own experimentation is great, and you don't know what you're going to get from that. So I would say if you're proud of a piece, you go ahead and publish it. Doesn't matter what it is. If it's from a tutorial, that's fine. If it's from university, that's fine. Now, there's certain things that for a hiring manager, or for myself when I was hiring manager in certain positions, I'm going to look for or not. For example, with tutorials, you're probably not showing problem solving in a way that is yours. So you're showing the problems being solved by the person doing that tutorial. So that doesn't hold as much value as maybe a piece that is of inferior quality, but is 100% your own. So there's a lot going on there. But we were saying social media, ArtStation, etc., etc. You can use the benefit of social media platforms to just publish any type of work and see where it leads you. Because even if it's a really bad piece, you always have the freedom to just hide it. There is not a single artist that I've known that wasn't terrible at the start. So you also have to allow yourself to publish bad pieces that you might not be very proud of in a year, but that you're very proud of today, and just hide them. This is like, if I show you my hidden pieces from ArtStation, like I have like 30 pieces, but I only show like 5.
I'm too proud, so I delete them all.
How about we check them? Let's all pick one from our hidden portion of the ArtStation.
Wait,
let's show them all.
Let's do that later, because if I have to switch between screens, it's kind of messy right now. So, but that's a good idea. We can do that as a post later. So everything you are just talking about, Javier, it's really interesting, especially because yesterday I was on a mentorship with a student of mine, and this is a post I did today. So he was feeling a little bit frustrated. He was trying to make the base color. I told him, hey, so instead of just, kind of keep having the sessions, I see that you need more work in this area. So I want you to work it by yourself. Yes. Try to figure out by yourself, and let's see how it goes from here onwards. When we see that you're reaching that goal, we will have another session. You have given him some feedback as well, Kai. It was toxic, and not the feedback, the username. Sorry, my bad there. So we gave him some feedback, and he did a better work. Yes, he did way better work. But when we got into the call, I was looking over it, and I felt like this was not good enough. I told him, hey, just start over with the base color. And when I told him this, he felt really like frustrated. Not with me, but with his artwork. And he told me, the thing is that when I got into the mentorship, I was super dedicated to actually making something really good, as you do. Yes. And it's hard to see or to not being able to achieve that after 3 months of just learning Substance Designer. And then I said that, wait, you're learning Substance Designer, like you just started learning Substance Designer. I mean, there's been 3 months where you have been working with it only. So I think that here comes something really important that I see a lot of students do. Yes, is that when they are working on a project, it doesn't matter if it is material art, if it is, prop art, environment art, is that they get frustrated because they want to achieve a goal and they feel blocked to achieve that goal. So they feel frustrated because of that. And because of that frustration, they cut their projects before, meaning they post things that feel incomplete or that they don't have the necessary quality. And for this student, what I told him is that the first actual material I made that was really good, AAA quality or more, took me 6 months. 6 months of working just one material. Of course, now with 5 years of experience and so on, and a lot of practice and several materials done, I can do those kind of works in 1 day to 2 days. But something really common, and that I see a lot is that people cut their artwork before time because they feel frustrated, and then they post that on our station. And it's not that it's wrong, but I do feel like something like that may not cause, the results that people are expecting. Especially in an environment where things are way too competitive nowadays, And taking that in consideration, there's a question here in the chat from Nikita that is asking, can you guys please elaborate on the blueprint portfolio piece for a junior as well? Yeah. So what I take for that is basically, how the hell do we plan our portfolio for a junior position or for a studio we want to work at?
No, I think this is related to what Kai was talking about, the student posting a blueprint. So I think he wants to know more about the artwork, probably.
Oh.
Yeah, that's also how
okay,
I understood it.
Yeah, okay. You can go ahead, Kai.
Yeah. Well, it would be easier to just show it, actually. But that would be on you to switch the scenes.
Oh, okay. So we can save that for...
later.
Yeah, we can do it. We can save that for later. I don't know if I can pin a question. Yeah, I can. I'm gonna pin your message, Nikita. So another question I have here is, I have different opinions about having artworks on different branches. For example, hard surface artists, characters, environment, cartoon, realism, all in your portfolio. I've heard that it's good to diversify and also that it's good to focus on one thing and improve it. What do you think?
Oh, I think that's actually easy to answer.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, you can do. I mean, I was gonna say, how much of a rush are you in to get a job? Because if you're more specialized, you might have a better time finding work in that position, and if you're more broad, it might lead to more questions, and but I can go on later, Kai, if you want to do it. I can.
Well, you actually just took ahead what I was going to say. Like, it's actually quite self-explainable. Like, the broader your portfolio is, the more questions, if you were to do that to be hired, the more questions just would come up naturally. Because if you can only apply for a certain position, or even maybe generalist, even though this position is kind of dying out because you're, I think, expected to be a generalist anyway in some kind. But yeah, like if you're applying for a hard surface position, and you're showing off one piece of hard surface and 3 others that are also, like, for example, materials, foliage, level design, there's naturally going to be the question, what else can you bring to the table, or are you more comfortable in any other position? Like, that's just the position you put yourself in, but it's nothing bad per se. You just need to know where you want to go with it.
So I think my case,
it's a difficult one.
Yeah, it is difficult to say, but I do think that there's like kind of like, in my case, if you are going to apply for a specific position and you, as you said, Javier, before, you're really looking for that job, just go for what you need to have on that portfolio. And I'm going to talk about that in some minutes on how I do it. So let's say I want to, like in my case, when I was studying, I wanted to become a material artist. So what I did was the following. First, I knew I had to, like, my specialty should be materials, yes, in substance designer. So I knew that for a while, the only thing I was going to do was gonna be doing material art. I was doing 3D modeling, I was doing props, yes, I was doing environments at that moment, but I didn't post them because I want to first get related or associate with materials. So again, my goal, material art, so I posted materials. And I focus specifically materials. Why? If you try to do so many things at the same time, most probably what's going to happen is that you're going to have to divide your energy, time, and attention into different things. So to get to certain level of quality that you need for the professional environment, it's going to take you even harder or even more time. Yes, because it's already harder to get to a professional level focusing one thing. Picture doing that for 5 different, branches of the industry. Like, doing character art is really hard. Now, picturing doing character art, environment art, and material art all in 1 month. for your portfolio. You're gonna drive yourself crazy. So I wouldn't recommend it as something efficient. Now that doesn't mean you can't do it later. Yes, in my case, I worked for first for materials and then started posting environments. Yes, and now I'm gonna start posting things about Houdini in my portfolio, which related to, like, let's say, looking at it from an external point of view, you don't kind of see the relationship, but when you are in production, you kind of look at it in a different way. So in my case, what I do suggest nowadays is that when you are in a specific role and you work in a specific role, you also have other, how do you call them? You have other roles that might get in contact with you and be related to you. So if you have an interest in any of those roles, I would suggest that you go for, like, to try to do something like that as well. In my case, I'm a material artist and I need to know not only substance designer, I need to know shaders as well. So I have that technical art background, yes. So I choose to do more technical art. So you might even start to see my portfolio that I start to do more technical art stuff, like tools for Unreal with Houdini, shaders. Oh, sorry, I hit the mic. Shaders and other kinds of stuff. That's my take on it. I don't know what you think, Javier.
I'm actually having this sort of thought now.
Yeah, I saw you were like thinking really hard.
Someone who comes to me with many different branches in our portfolio, say they do characters, environments, they also do vehicles, guns. I think they just enjoy doing all those things. Why do we have to be telling those people that they have to focus on only one thing if what they like is all the, like, the umbrella of different specific specialities that there is? I mean, it's not really the word I'm looking for, because you can be specialized in just art, I mean 3D art, and
yeah,
there's always a further level of specialization. I think if we continue this route, we might end up being, I don't know, it's probably like a silly thought, but if we continue a route of specialization, there's gonna be bold artists at some point.
Yeah,
you know?
it's true.
And I don't know. I think that again, when someone comes to me with such a varied portfolio, it's because they enjoy doing all those things. And I'm just gonna speak from my experience. I'm someone who has a very fluid interest base. I go from this very different thing to that other very different thing, and I enjoy taking what I learned from that end of the spectrum to this other end of the spectrum. So to what point, like, again, if we're showcasing what we are as an artist with our portfolios, why showcasing only one of the things that we like to do? Is it only because we're good at them? But then I don't think an artist can be happy doing only one of the many things they like to be creative on. So again, but then the question comes, like, you have to start somewhere, and that is also very true. But I don't know. I think it's a very unique experience. The artist path towards being a professional is a very unique experience. And for me, as a self-taught artist that didn't have any sort of guidance when it comes to making and developing a portfolio, it was more about what I enjoyed doing and how that made me be super, well, I mean, I was gonna say make me be super good, but it made me good enough in it made me good enough in certain areas to the point where I could become a professional. But it started from me having interests somewhere. I liked doing weapons at the same time. I liked doing environments, and by the time there was a props artist position, and that props artist position was the one doing, vehicles, guns, and you did pretty much everything. Actually, the first experience where I got separated from environment art onto just doing vehicles was when I started working at Rockstar Games, when they had the vehicle art team. But in other companies, like my previous experience was that I was just a 3D artist who could do many things that were separated in two main groups. It was either characters to be animated or just everything else. I'm talking about modeling and texturing, of course, not VFX rigging or anything like that. But again, I think it's okay if, as long as when you apply to a certain position, say senior, well, whatever, say hard surface artist, um, that you have enough examples in your portfolio to back up the claim that you think you are good enough to be in that hard surface artist position. When I receive a portfolio for an environment artist, if that environment artist has environments but also has characters, obviously I only need to look at the environments. The rest, if the environments are good, I don't think any lower quality assets that are only showing me the interest of this artist, they're showing me the personality of this artist, they're going to diminish that idea that I have that this artist can do the work. So as long as what you're applying to is something that you have in your portfolio and you have it at a high enough quality, I think that all artists should be free to explore whatever areas they like and build and include that in their portfolios. Like if you love writing, you can include that in your portfolio if you want, as long as you showcase that you can do whatever you're asked to do by that position.
Yeah,
But I don't think we should go.
Yeah, go finish.
Sorry, I don't think we should go the route of telling certain artists who have wider interests that they shouldn't pursue those interests, because then you're kind of killing part of the soul of that artist, which at the end of the day is what we are and what we want to be. It's idealistic. Again, I'm going to come from idealism, but I think it's important to not lose humanity in the industry and as an artist.
So everything you just said is the main reason why so far I always choose to work on outsourcing studios. What happens in really big studios, and the reason why I was saying that the specialization thing, is because in big studios they usually have specified teams for specific tasks, and most of the times you're just going to be doing that. Yeah. And of all the interviews I had, most of them told me, yeah, I mean, you're going to be making materials. Now with them, you're going to be touching these, but mostly you're going to be making materials from big studios. In outsourcing studios, well, it changes. You're going to be doing more stuff. Where I'm working right now, that would be kind of an outsourcing studio. I'm doing a lot of several things that I get interest, and they care about what I want to do. So they ask me, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? I mean, I think it was last month when I was asked by my boss if I can do something in Houdini, So it is true, and I do understand what I'm reading here, yes, from Dalia and Nikita. I understand how important specialization is, but it feels like treating me as a robot program to do one thing, or like a chair that only has one function. And Nikita says, exactly, Dalia, that's frustrating, but finding a job in the industry is what drives that type of thinking and advice, I think. And you both have a really good point in from my perspective. So in one way, studios are looking for people like for the highest bidder with the highest skill and quality for the job they need. So when you are offering yourself for a job, the one who is at the recruiter, and even maybe sometimes the senior who is in the recruitment process, is gonna tend to choose someone who has more experience in this single type of work than the person that is a little more kind of spread up in their interests. That doesn't mean it's wrong or good. It's just the way they do how they do things to hire. And doing one thing or the other is not going to be bad for you as well. If you want to specialize in one thing, go and specialize in one thing. If you want to go and be more of a generalist, as Javier was saying, and you have interest in making environment, material, props, you like to do characters, but only, let's say, you only like to do dragons and creatures, just go ahead and do it. You can post it in your portfolio as well. I mean, there's not going to be much of a drama as long as for the position you're applying to, you are the right fit for that. Which takes to another question from Nikita that says, what makes a great piece from a hiring perspective for a junior?
Problem
Good
solving.
question.
We could
I
show
think
one.
creativity, problem solving. It's many things. I mean, good art is important, but I think for a junior specifically, it's how you break down that piece. Like everyone can. That's not the right way, but with certain training, everyone can get a good result. They could use Megascans exclusively and then just arrange and light it properly and make it look good, and it's gonna be eye-catching. So you can make an eye-catching piece with little tools when compared to what it actually takes to make an environment from scratch. Speaking of environments, for example. So I think that the way you break down the work, the way you show the problems that you solved, and the way you show your creativity and your personal input into the work that you're going to be doing at a studio, I think that is exactly what makes a difference between any junior and a junior you would want to hire, is, you know, that person who knows how to stand from the crowd by sharing knowledge, breakdowns, etc.
Yeah. I would feel the same. Like, from an honest point of view, there is like a low standard what to expect from a junior. Like, not that you would particularly think a junior doesn't bring anything of the same quality like a more experienced person to the table, but in general, you're like more forgiving towards some areas that just lack, because it's for a junior position. You're expected to just learn, to do easier things, to get the grip for the software, for the workflows, and that's totally fine. But at the same time, as Javier said, the thing that makes you stand out is to actually really learn, maybe even understand some workflows, get into this problem-solving mindset. Because, as he said, you can make anything look good with Megascans, put them in a scene, know a bit about of lighting, and there you go, you have a great environment. And someone on the other hand who does it from scratch has like weeks of work and may not even reach that same quality. So now you gotta weigh those things against each other. And for some studios and for some occasions, one might be better than the other, because the person that builds that from scratch gets experience in exact that area, and he or she might have time to do exactly that, get experience in the whole workflow about sculpting, texturing, and stuff like that, while the other person is intended to bring better results in a shorter amount of time. And that's also a skill that you have to learn, because in most environments you're limited through like pretty much anything. It can be lacking software, it can be lacking budget, lacking time, or even if you're in a junior position, that your lead, your head, or your colleagues don't have enough time to teach you something. So you're expected to like do that yourself in some kind. And the better you are at this, the easier it is for you to grow as an artist and fulfill like anything you want or the studio asks for. Yeah.
So I agree in everything. Like, so the other day I was, what was it? I don't remember what I was doing. I think I was looking for information for a content piece that was creating, and I came across with a quote that is actually quite good, and it's like a really great explanation, especially for something if you're trying to, if you're a junior and you really want to make an impact. And it said something like this: when you see a piece of art, there's only 3 reactions to it. That's good. That's really great. Wow. You always want to aim for wow. You always want to aim to actually impress people. Now, if you impress people with the quality of your artwork, but let's say the effort you have put into it is not really that hard, that wow is not that strong. Yes. So as Kai was saying, it is way more valuable to go and do something from zero and take it to hero than just picking up things just to complement or to just make the whole thing. So if you want to do an environment, for example, as he was saying, then maybe, and you want to be an environment artist, making the whole environment using only Megascans, that's not gonna be amazing. It's not gonna amaze anyone. Like, it's something that anyone can do, actually. Well, not anyone, but most people. But if you go into it and you go by the work and problem of actually making every piece of the environment, you go throughout every problem and solve it, and even leave your own, like, let's say, artist mark on it, which is something really fun to do. I think that's going to be more valuable. And another thing would be that, like, if you're going to be solving so many problems, share them. Share the problems you have. Share how you actually manage to solve them, because those are really important pieces for a recruiter, for a senior that's going to or trying to hire you, because that's how they know how you work. Yes, that's a really way of them to understand how you are working, what are you really good at, what maybe you are lacking in your experience, or the way you work, if you're organized, if you're not organized. So it talks a lot about you. So sharing those kinds of things where you actually get to, share how you work, your workflow, how you solve the problems, it's going to be more valuable than just uploading renders and that's it. Or as far that's how I've been taking things in this matter.
Also, I think
well, yeah.
you said this about. Oh, sorry, man. Sorry,
No,
I was
go
just
ahead,
gonna
it's
say
fine, it's fine.
the woe element can come from different places, many different places, and I think that as artists we always think the woe element has to come from visually stunning results, but as a game artist, that woe element can also come from very good optimization and very good problem solving when coming to creative. I think it's creative solutions for problems.
Yeah.
So I saw this tree the other day that someone made in Houdini engine that they imported into Unreal, and they were building trees with positioning boxes, and then the tree kind
I've
of
seen
got
that.
to
I've seen that.
yeah. So I think I can share that later.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I saved it. Actually, I saw it from you, Kai. I saw it from you. I actually
Yeah, I reshared that.
yeah, you reshared that in LinkedIn. Yeah, that's true. And that's what I think, that those types of problems that you solve. I mean, you don't have to go ahead and create custom tools like those, but those are the things that are relatively simple to make. Relatively, I think is the keyword there, but they have a huge woe element. So it's kind of like a risk versus reward ratio that you really need to balance out. Because if you just put a lot of work into another scene that everyone has made, that
Yeah.
woe element is also going to be deteriorated by not a surprise element, because this is what everyone does. So I think creativity is a huge part of that woe element.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good point.
Go ahead.
Let me go into that real quick. I remember there's one specific piece on ArtStation from some crazy freak that made how they call it, like an air balloon, like a steampunk air balloon.
Yeah.
And that one had, like, if I remember correctly, over 1K UDIMs, all in 4K resolution. And that, besides the immense work that lies within that, just the whole procedure of actually rendering that made me like really like this wow effect. I was just blown away by the amount of work, and that is actually like really work. It's amount of hours you got to put into that. And at the same day, I came across like yeah. But at the same day, I came across a certain VFX animation. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was so eye-catching, and I had the same exact feeling. And it came from a student who happened to play around, like still in college, not still in university, not even finished, just in their spare time sharing something. And I had the same feeling. So it's not just about the work you put into it. It can like be really simple things without undervaluing them.
I think the best example for this case is Andrei Salenko. I don't know if you know him, Javier.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure if I don't see it written.
I'm just gonna tell you this. This guy is crazy. He's crazy. He does things in Substance Designer you don't know you can do it. I mean, you discover a new world with this guy. He always like posts ArtStation things where basically he's building procedural patterns that are animated, or that, like, I don't know, everything he posts, you just watch at it and say like, how the hell did you do this? And then he shows you how. And it's just math and you look at the math and you're like, I don't understand anything about this. I don't know what the hell. I mean, there's letters in numbers and I don't get that really well. But you see the result and you see how he resolved all these things, and then he gives you a detailed explanation of how, like, kind of like actually telling you what all the math he does means, and then you kind of get it. And when you get it, it's like, this is really great. Like, this is amazing. It's something really simple. It's not something like, let's say, top-notch quality for a AAA game or for a Hollywood movie. Just the creation of a pattern, just as simple as that. But it's made in a way that it's so complex that it just amazed you, you know. And
send him later.
Yeah, we're gonna see it when you go back to our session. We're gonna see it because he's really crazy. So I have Wallflower here, and she's saying, I've heard a lot of studios don't hire material artists as an entry-level position. In that case, is building your portfolio as an environment artist, but with focus on textures preferred? So personally, like in my experience, well, because I had that same, what you are saying is a question I had like 5 to 6 years ago, and I talked about this with Enrico. So at that moment when I was learning material art, the role of a material artist was really brand new. Like substance designer has just came out, and there was actually no material art position at any kind of level because it was super new to have a material artist in the studio. Nowadays, it's still something new, but it has advanced a little bit more. You can see for mid and senior material art positions, but as you are saying, you can't see much of a junior position. Regardless, there are junior positions around, like they are because I've seen them. The only thing is that they're not made public for some reason. I'm not sure why, but most of the times when it comes to juniors, they try to do more like contacts things. Like for example, now that I'm hosting the community with Kai, from other friends of mine that are inside the industry, they're always asking me, hey, do you have someone to recommend as a junior material artist? Because we are looking for someone, but we need to really trust on him. And that's something really important because learning substance design and doing material art is actually super hard in some aspects, because you have to combine a really hard and technical aspect with a lot of, let's say, artistic things. So it is kind of a hard road, and for some reason right now they're not trusting it that much to juniors. Now what you can do it's you, Mudra. Sorry, I didn't recognize you. So what you can do in this case, that is what I did. I first built, yes, a basis in material art. Yes, so I think I did 4 to 5 really good materials, and then I switched to making environments, and I made 1 to 2 environments, and you can start from there. Like one way or another, I would recommend you to do environments. And as Javier was saying before, the more skills you have, you might find new things you like, and you might find a job you like even more than just being a material artist. So yeah, go ahead. You can go and try making environments as well for it, and it's going to be 100% more useful for you. Now, Nikita is asking here, on that note, what do you guys think about presenting your work in a more VFX way as a game artist? I mean, using displacement much higher, textile density higher, poly count, etc. That's what I do, actually. But I want to hear your take on, before talking myself, I want to hear your take on these ones, guys.
Go ahead, Javier. I think you have something to say.
It's tough. Nah, it's very tough, man. I mean, depends on who's looking as well. You always want to have the eye-catching factor. I guess we're also talking about realism exclusively. Like these things, for example, displacement for a material might not be as relevant on something that is hand painted than, you know, some hyper realistic material, of course. But it's a difficult one. It really depends on who's looking. I haven't been part of hiring processes in all of the studios, so I don't know, but I guess for the initial screening of if someone from HR, for example, that doesn't have a lot of or I guess more than HR, if someone from the talent acquisition department who doesn't have a lot of art and training, they might be, it might be easier to get the first screening passed through them if you go for super catchy and flashy.
Yeah.
But in reality, man, I don't know. I can tell you what I would do personally. I mean, I do game art, and I like proving that I do game art. Um, I don't do this with my portfolio. I do this with the breakdowns of my work. So I guess it's a good combination of like a good way to get that done. If you get like a very catchy piece, but then you break down in a way that people understand that your process adheres to a game art process, but then you're just adding these little extras because you want to have fun with your art. I think that should be valid. That is valid for me as an artist. Um, it's again, I'm not involved in all those processes, but yeah, man, it's a difficult question to answer. I've heard people, heard people who are really good, and they're very successful artists say that you should always go for the highest resolution displacement, very high poly, because your portfolio should be flashy and catchy like this. I've heard the opposite. I've heard, keep it true to what you can do at a work, and make sure you follow and you adhere to the limitations that you would get in that engine. I get a kick from both. I'm not sure if I'm gonna pronounce his name incorrectly, so I'm gonna make sure I don't. So just gonna give me a second. So there's this guy, Tiago
Yeah,
Klavke, who made this Spanish. I think it was the Spanish town in Unity, and it's looking amazing without the need of adding all these flashy things. Because again, I think as artists, we shouldn't really focus so much on technical aspects. We should follow more about the core basics. So there's a good color palette in that environment. There's a good breakdown on how they did the light baking and the process of building the shots and the frames. There's good composition. There's a good amount of content. I mean, it's just done right. And then anything from there, it would be a plus. So I think that then is how we need to treat that. You need to focus more on the base, and when you have a good base, then whatever you want to add as a plus or not, shouldn't really be so important. And if it is to you, that's great. You have fun adding that extra layer of displacement, that's great. Normally, I tend not to do that. Not to, I tend to keep my portfolio models game ready, and that's what works for me. But what works for you might be tied to things like the companies you apply to, that they might be looking for different things that the companies that I apply to. So it's a very open topic.
Yeah, in fact, you know what?
I guess. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I hope that thought goes to show that there's no right or wrong. There's things that work for a majority or a minority, but it doesn't mean that you don't have to do you. Because at the end of the day, I think when I'm hiring people, what I'm looking for is the unique aspect of the artist. And if they can do the work, and if that whatever they adorn the work with is not so relevant, it's more about the core concepts that they're applying to their work.
So I think that one day I'm gonna have to kind of bring a recruiter, and we're gonna have to do an interrogation to him live. So for all of these questions, now I'm just gonna quote you on something, Javi. Do what you love for your portfolio. Do what you love. Yeah, my case, like for example, my case is exactly what you just mentioned, Nikita. My materials and the way I present them, they're not traditional game art, and that's not because there's a secret hack behind it. I mean, the way I present them, yes, that's a kind of a secret hack for me, because at that moment I did it, everyone was doing spheres, and I just wanted to do something different to call for attention. But regardless, the planes I'm using are super high poly. They have super high displacements. My textures are in 8K. My renders are in 8K. My lighting is using ray tracing with, like, making a render for me, it's like my computer might blow up sometimes. So that's not because it's beneficial for me. That's just because I like how it looks. And I like doing those kinds of things. And I like to be like kind of recognized by my portfolio on that area. Now, if I get a gamer job or not, right now, for me, it's a little bit different. I want to work in the gamer industry because I enjoy it, but I really like the portfolio the way it is because it talks a lot about myself, as Javier was saying before. Now, something else you guys mentioned in the middle, and I think it was you, Javi, when it comes to the basics of, when we do our artwork. And I think that was really genius, and I want to make a note on that. Take care more of the basics of your artwork, like the palette and, all those things, before going to technicalities. First learn the art, then go for technicalities. Because most of the times what happens is like, you're making an environment and you focus too much on making, the material blend on the shader in Unreal Engine, and so you can then texture paint it on over a surface, and yeah, that's cool, but that's not gonna be useful unless you have a really good base of art on it. So the technical aspect of making games is not just something you need to just to have it. Yes, it's not like a skill you have for your how do you call it, for your CV, let's say. For me personally, if you're going to get into technical aspects of the art process, yes, let's say texture painting, like I'm doing Houdini, building seeds generators, you want to do it first because you like it, and second because there's a reason for you to use it. No studio is going to ask you to do something they are not going to use. So I might learn nowadays how to make a full city procedural in Houdini, but when I get to work in a studio, they're not going to ask that from me. So I might do it because I like it, but they might not be useful for them as well. So when you go into the technical aspects, try to figure out if you're doing it because you really like what is behind it and you feel it's really interesting, that's the best case in scenario, because if you're really interested about something and you really love it, you're going to put 100% of yourself, and most probably you're going to wake up an interest in other people because you're going to show so much passion about it that it's going to be interesting for anyone else. And if you're not doing it because of that, then I would recommend you maybe not to follow that path, or maybe if you're going to follow it, try to think of why are you doing it? Why are you actually really choosing to do this kind of technical stuff in your artwork? Is it because someone told you need them? Or is it because you really need them to make something, like to reach a specific goal? Yeah. So I thought that we had more questions in the chat. So let's jump with the next ones. Yes. And this goes back to... This goes back to our station.
Before we move on,
yeah,
I have to leave you now.
Yeah, I remember you told me. It's alright, man.
Yeah. Gotta pick up my wife.
It was good to see you today. It was good to see you today, man.
Same for you.
Hope we see each other again.
I'll see you.
A lot of more meetings, probably.
Yeah, me too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I'll see you later, Kai.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming, man.
Well, good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Javier, if you at any moment you need to leave as well, just let me know. There's no problem. Just
No, I'm fine until 7. I might need like a minute bathroom break at some point because I'm drinking a lot of tea. And
I'm drinking a lot of water. I'm starting to feel it. So yeah, it's all right. We can do that.
Very, very warm. It's very warm to not be drinking all this water. So yeah.
So we were talking about ArtStation before. Yeah. We talk about portfolios, what should we include, everything, but there's a small question that it sounds a little bit silly, but it's actually really important depending on how do you look at it. Do likes and views matter in ArtStation? Do they really matter, or do they actually have something to say about the quality of your artwork, or when I mean, and I want to be clear, this when I say the quality of your artwork, I don't mean, you know, if it looks good or not, if it's actually a good art piece as well.
That's an interesting one. Do they matter? Depending on the point of view, I think I can think about at least three. Main one I would say is the algorithm. Do they matter? Yes, because you will get more eyes on your work. It's exponential. The more likes you get, the longer you'll be on the trending page, the more eyes you're gonna get, and the more you're going to potentially attract um, the hiring people and or connections or people who are interested in you as an artist, and you can get whatever from there, even friends, whatever. But yes, it matters for that reason. Obviously, the ego of an artist. I mean, I'm someone who struggles a lot with imposter syndrome. So, I mean, I'm not saying my artwork gets driven uniquely by likes, but it certainly feels like you're going in the right direction, right? It could be a driver, especially nowadays, since I work from home and I don't have these many peers, and I don't speak with as much people as I used to speak
Yeah,
when I
me
was
too.
working in the studio. Um, it feels like it helps me make decisions on what is a good piece, what is a bad piece. But other I guess other than for the algorithm, do they really matter to you as should they really matter to you as an artist? Obviously, I think no. Um, you should do what you like regardless of the likes you get. It's good to get eyes on your work. But and I'm gonna speak from experience here. The moment I developed a connection with my work through other people's feelings about my work, is when I got the most burnt out about my art, because I was no
Yes.
longer doing it for myself. I was doing it for the likes and the views. And the moment I broke away from that, there was like a period of like maybe 4 years in which I didn't post any art at all. Um, and I had to kind of cleanse myself from the likes, the follows, and the comments to really establish back that connection that I had originally with 3D art. And I've seen this in every single art endeavor that I guess art journey that I've gotten myself involved in. For example, I've done this with 3D art, I've done this with photography, and I've done this with writing. I remember when I started writing blog posts. At first, I did it out of love. I didn't get any eyes on it. The moment I start getting eyes on it, it almost felt like a responsibility. It didn't feel anymore like something that I just wanted to do because it felt good. And I eventually stopped writing those posts just because I didn't enjoy it anymore. I was developing that unhealthy connection with attention, if that makes sense. Same with
Yeah.
photography. I really enjoyed photography. I at least didn't get any eyes on it. Eventually, I started to get eyes on my photography and a lot of really positive comments. Um, and the moment that happened, I lost passion, and I started to do it more because I knew I was gonna get that instant kind of kick from you know 300 likes on a picture I posted. So, which for me it was a lot at the time.
It is
And
still a lot.
and I've yeah, I haven't recovered my passion for writing. I'm starting to recover my passion for photography, but definitely what the one that I've been doing the longest is 3D art, and I can see that sort of path in which I've been here. I've been here in terms of likes. I've enjoyed it a lot. Then I've been like, but I felt like I was getting a lot of attention. Then something happened. Felt more of pressuring, because what if I post something that people don't like? What if I suddenly, instead of getting 600 likes, I just get like 100? And I stopped liking to post my art. And the connection that I developed was more like I post my art because I get a kick from it, not because I actually like I do art thinking about how many likes that's going to get. And not because this is a piece that I want to make. So I lost that passion. I exchanged it for the kick and the false gratification of getting attention in it. But then obviously I stopped publishing art, and years after, while teaching, I started to regain that sort of passion for it, and doing it just because it's a process that I enjoy doing. I enjoy seeing a bake go through, and I like, look, it worked. And I enjoy, defining a material, a PBR, and a PBR value that just works and it looks good in all lighting scenarios. And I'm like, oh, that material looks very nice. Or just developing this color variation on a noise and a million notes, and like, this is actually really fun because I'm getting that sort of feedback that I'm creating this piece that I'm enjoying. So, I mean, do they matter? I think they matter for the algorithm, but I should really run away from likes and follows and all of that, because it feels like if you don't get them, it's because you're not doing something right. And again, with what I said with Kara at the beginning, it might just be because there's a lot of people doing this, and obviously we're not all paying attention to each other. It really is a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I just read Nikita's message, and yeah, I was going to say the same. In fact, I have a really similar experience, and I think that likes and views have their advantages and disadvantages. As you said, the negative side of it is that, yeah, I mean, you kind of get addicted to it. You get addicted to that attention, and when you don't get that attention again in your next post, you feel like so overwhelmed. And it still happens to me, for all the content I'm doing on LinkedIn. I was recently really frustrated because I remember I did a post where it got more than 6,000 views in LinkedIn, which is like a lot for the traffic LinkedIn had. That's like huge, and it almost got like 100 likes out of just one post, and I wasn't able to acquire that again. I was driving myself crazy. So it still happens to me every now and then, but there's some things that comes really good from actually having or aiming for those things. So first thing is exposure. Especially if you're an artist that is looking for a job, you want to have that exposure. The more people you know that know that you are there, the more chances you have of getting a job, because studios can't hire someone they don't know exists. That's the first thing. The second thing, and this is a trick I realize at the moment, is that many people do look at the likes. I don't look at the amount of likes. I look at who liked my artwork. So I can get 100 likes in one post, 200, 300, but I'm not going to be looking at the number. I'm going to be looking at, okay, who said my artwork is good? Is it a friend? Is it a professional? And if I'm looking at a job and I want to take a specific path, I'm going to be looking for the professional side. So in my case, I realized I was doing things well, not because of the amount of views or the amount of likes, but because I was working, and out of the blue, Daniel Theiger, Chris Hodgson started to like my artworks. My boss right now, Emil Slicker, started to like my artwork. So I started to say, okay, so I am doing something really good if these people are telling me that they don't even know me. They are telling me that this is good, so this is good. So I have to go and follow that path. And it is hard to kind of like detach one thing to the other, trying to detach the number and the people who are there. And as you said, it's hard to not fall into that. I don't want to call it addiction, but into that kind of worry of, I need to call for attention. I need to be. I think it's more of like a self-imposed thing, that when we see that there's so many people supporting us, we need to keep doing more and more and better, and that is actually something really I see that most people have in common. Like most professional artists do have in common, is that when we start doing something really good, we just try to push it further and further in this area.
I think it's a I think it is an addiction. I think it can become an addiction, and I think if it doesn't become an addiction, and there's something negative going to come from this sort of fake attention, I would say, because for me it was pressure. I got a lot of pressure. Like, if my next artwork did less likes than the one before, then I feel like I'm not progressing as an artist. Like, I'm just speaking from the most truthful bottom of my heart. Is with all this time in ArtStation and all these platforms, is how I ended up reacting to likes, and how I ended up I had to end up just resting. I had to rest from this to really understand what it was doing to my perception, my own perception of the artwork. Now, when I see you, when I hear you talking about, this person or that person liked my artwork, I think, man, we're at a point where it's about us. We have enough knowledge to understand if a piece is good or not. We don't need other people liking it to drive our direction as an artist. And I think that's very dangerous, man, because it really leaves no room for, or almost no room, or as much room as it left before, for that sort of fight to look for your own way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Sorry, I got Dalia also writing something important. I'm gonna read her as well right now. But yeah, I do agree. The thing is that from a standpoint of someone that maybe doesn't have much communication with certain professionals, having that, kind of like of that specific, I'm not gonna say like, I'm gonna change the word support. Having that support, or that kind of support from someone that you have them as heroes, or that they're really good.
Support.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yes,
really good.
Exactly. That's
I
good.
mean, that's where I said it maybe wrong. It's not about, like, one thing is the likes, the other one is who is supporting you, because the like is a kind of support, but the thing is that many people like things. So the first thing you see is a number, and you get trapped in the number.
But with all the content, we have,
exactly.
a like is someone going out of their way to like your stuff.
Yeah.
So it's support. I agree, and that's a good thing. You can feel supported, but you should never get to a state where you feel driven by that number.
Exactly.
Because it's not real.
No, it's not real at all. And in fact, Dale is saying something really important here. She said, I work the most of for advertising, and the most valuable thing I learned is how crazy the algorithm can drive the best people. It is a field of joy because the satisfaction is very short, but it's very important, just not more than mental health. So balance is good, and I think she's right. Yeah. The algorithm for this kind of things, it's crazy. I mean, it changed a lot. I can tell you because in the last, how much time that has it gone? 6 months, I think, since I started again with the new FMA. 8 months. I'm really lost in time right now. The algorithm has changed a lot. So yeah, it is kind of crazy.
So I had this thought. When likes start to drive, where engagement in general start to drive the type of art you generate, there is a loop in which you start to make the art because of a preference of engagement, not because of a preference of what you want to do. And then as an artist, you're gonna end up in this position where you're sooner or later going to realize that you didn't make the right choice. At best, that's what could happen. If you don't get very burnt out because you're working on something you particularly might not like, it's other people that you think other people might like, but maybe not yourself. You're gonna get very burnt out. So at worst, that's what's going to happen. I hope that's the worst thing. At least that can happen. Again, you can get out of anything, really, if you just pay attention to your mental health. So yeah, I think you, as an artist, again, it's about working on what you want to work on, and then likes will come, but that should never be the driving factor of what type of work you choose to make.
Okay, so let's take a small break, but just so we then make a switch. And I drink too much water. We need to have a break, guys. So let's do something in the meantime. For those who are with us in Discord and for those who are with us in YouTube, please send, if you want, yes, it's not an obligation, send us your portfolio link. Yes, we're gonna be looking at it after the break. It's just gonna be 5 minutes break. Is it all right for you, or do you want more? We can have more.
Yeah, I need like 1 minute.
Okay, yeah, me too.
As you decide.
So let's do 5-minute breaks and we will be right back. I'm gonna pull the volume of the music a little bit up for you during that time, so let me know if it's good or not. And I'm gonna also try to do something different with the cameras because we're also having some problem with the cameras. So I'm gonna try that as well before going back to that. So yeah, commercial break. Logos. So yeah, go ahead, send for those who are in YouTube, you can send on the YouTube chat where you're writing, you can send the link to your portfolio. And for those who are with Javier and me in Discord, you can already send it in our Discord, which is there. And that's it. Maverick, how do we join on Discord? So the people who are with us in Discord are trainees, meaning they were part of the mentoring or mentorship program. And they are part of something that we haven't talked about yet because we wanted to give it to you when it's more complete and more serious, that is called FMA Pro. That is going to be launched by the end of the year, which is kind of a university, we could say, on FMA with more of more like learning content and exclusive content. So guys, we'll be back in 5 minutes. Yes. So I want to see your portfolios as well.
Awesome. All right. See you in a bit.
There we go. Oh. So let's see. I'm gonna try something now. So we're gonna do art stations. Yes. So before changing screen, I wanna choose as many portfolios as I can. Can you guys hear me on YouTube?
Ezequiel, creo que para el tema de compartir pantalla a la hora de... Perdona que te hablo en español. A la hora de compartir pantalla aquí en Discord, si yo comparto pantalla para revisar un portfolio, tú puedes darle pantalla completa y demás.
Ah, es verdad, ¿querés revisarlos? Sí, vamos a hacer así, porque el tema es que si yo cambio la otra pantalla, nuestras caras no se van a ver más. Y no puedo hacer como compartir cámara en las dos. Así que, perfecto, sí, hagamos eso, ¿querés?
Vale, sí, lo vemos a ver qué funciona. Yo me estaré atento del stream y a ver qué se ve guay y tal.
Nikita, Javier forgot to change the language.
It's a paid feature.
Yeah, you have to subscribe to get the English version. Okay, so yeah, go ahead. You can start with any portfolio. In fact, we can do it in order if you want. We can start with Damian.
Sure.
Guys, for those on YouTube, again, if you want to have your portfolio being reviewed, just send it in this chat. The one I'm gonna just write it here and send your portfolio. There we go. Now,
Just to check your I guess everyone sending their portfolio is good with it being shared on our screen.
Yeah. Give me 2 seconds because I forgot to
just
change the screen, so people are seeing us or are listening to us, but they are seeing just the logo of the future material artists. There we go. Perfect. So I'm gonna put this here, and there we go. This is something. I mean, our face is gonna get cut. That's the only problem here. And just there we go.
I think you can make it totally full screen, so that it's a better viewing experience. I'm not exactly sure how. I think it's maybe double click on the.
There we go. Yeah, there we go.
No, up there. Oh, you did it. Okay, sorry, but I'm seeing. Yeah, awesome. I'm seeing it with delay on YouTube. Yeah, that works. Awesome. Cool. So Damian, let's take a look. I'm gonna be asking some questions. So what is your intended role? What is it that you want to aspire to? I'm guessing environment art. Yes, and for games.
Also, sorry, I'm interrupting you guys. You can send your portfolio, no matter if you're an environment artist, material artist. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
Send your portfolio. Don't worry about the role. Just send it.
Okay. And when you explain, when you send your portfolio, please make sure you explain a little bit of what you want to achieve with it. It can be simple. I want to be a junior artist in the games industry, junior environment artist, whatever. Okay. Just make sure that if you need anything checked in particular, that I know about it. Okay. Or if there's any piece that I should ignore, etc., etc. Cool. So this is something that I really like. Jumping right into it, I can see that I'm getting a breakdown of how you work. And I think this is great. No matter the quality of the work, okay, not getting into that right now, but this is always a win. Getting that sort of breakdown is a huge win. You can get a lot from this. Sorry, you can get more views. You can get more connections, but definitely this is making your work more interesting. This is a personal preference, but I am a lot more interested in this than in this. If I knew I could work, if I knew I could get work, and the right eyes on my work only from posting breakdowns, I would. But there's obviously the need for the final piece as well. because that's what we do, right? We do art at the end of the day. But this is amazing, guy. Just seeing the breakdown and seeing all the process is great. Okay. So in terms of quality, I think this is very nice as well. Nice breakdowns with wireframes. That's amazing, and the concept art. Good. This is great. I like this work very much. I wasn't very prepared to do portfolio reviews, so I need to get in that mood. But I would say reference is something that might have been not so present in this piece when it comes to texturing. I'm saying that especially because of the roof. I think the way this moss is distributed, I'm kind of lacking that real world justification for it. Now, in your concept art, you were getting a lot more of it, which makes a little bit more sense. But I'm definitely missing. I'm definitely missing. Let's see. So, how can I Google this? I guess I'm gonna do this in Spanish.
Wooden roof tiles.
Yeah, is it wooden?
I think they were. If they are medieval, they are wooden, but they can be stone as well.
Okay, I think it was yeah, it seems wooden, yeah. So it's a little bit of a mix right there. When it comes to material definition, I think that's also a big part of this. But so wooden shingles, mossy wooden shingles. Let's actually go for Pinterest here, because I think that's so wooden shingles, mossy. So I think building a good reference board is going to be key when it comes to getting those materials right. I'm not sure about the style you were going for. It feels like you wanted to go for realism, but it ended up being quite stylized. So we have a few mixes of we have like a mix of styles. I think the trees, they're kind of wanting to go for realism. The sizes of the leaves, the grass, everything aims for realism. But when we came to defining the materials, it's again, I think we're missing that sticking to the reference part. I don't dislike this piece at all. I think it's great. I think it's really good. So again, navigating ArtStation sometimes is a little bit difficult. And I'm also missing that variation. Again, it all comes from reference. I think if I had to give, just to again save a bit of time, and allow for reviews of all the portfolios that are being sent to us right now, or at least a big part of it, is reference. You need to look for more reference. How does plaster? I sometimes look for material reference at textures.com. And go all the way down to the sections. Let's see in this case, I can go for plaster and go for maybe dirty or old, damaged, worn, whatever. And if you scroll down outside of the seamless textures or tilables, you're gonna get, this is seamless too, but it's more of an image someone took of that wall. And I think this is what you're missing. If you were missing something, I would say you're missing that reference telling you exactly where to add and what to add on your, what details to add on your models. Wood is well defined. You have a good directional noise. You have good color variation. You have good edge damage. I didn't see this one. Not sure why it didn't load, but this makes it a million times more interesting. Which is one of the points that I was gonna was gonna make is that I would have used the occasion to add like some storytelling to that lighting as well, which you did here. So that's actually very, very good. But yeah, that's essentially that's pretty much what I'm missing. I'm missing that sort of touch in all of those materials. So how can you do better next time? Just follow a simple process, and it's again, I'm gonna go to that concept art. I'm gonna do this for you just this once, so that I hope that everyone else who has a similar problem can take um, this idea and apply it and extrapolate it to their own art. But this is the process that I would follow. I pretty much would kind of doing arrows here. I would kind of isolate. Sorry, I'm doing this with the mouse. But I would isolate these areas, probably choose a larger one, then kind of get my arrow over here. And then, obviously, if you choose an area that doesn't, this is weird and confusing because it feels like I'm outlining the window. But what I would do is this. I would just make sure that I have one reference per material to start with, okay, to begin with. Not sure if that came through in the stream because people are saying it weird. But yeah, I would.
Yeah,
I would
sorry, I'm
isolate
trying to
those
fix.
Yep, it's all good. So then again, you get that. I would try to get as close as possible, and from this, you're gonna start to see what details you can add in. So that's smaller cracks, bigger missing patches. That sort of this. You have this material in some areas, especially the top one, but also try looking for a plaster that would make sense within your concept art. Okay, so in here you have something that looks wet, green, humid, and these are the repercussions and I guess the effects of humidity in this material in particular. So in this image alone, you have a lot of information to go from, and that's something that I would have loved to see in that plaster. So your plaster right now, it's very dirty, but it's very dirty everywhere. And as you can see here, we have dirtiness in localized areas, but there's also other areas that are very clean. We have these huge, large patches that you have replaced with a very strong displacement on the bricks. We have these sort of connections to the ground that I'm not seeing there. And when we are connecting these to other materials, like for example here on the top with the brick or other cements, we're getting these sort of transition lines, which I would have loved to see on these areas over here. But again, defining the process, what I would do is kind of circle out those areas. I'm doing this quickly for the example, but you can make this as beautiful as you want. And then I would go to textures.com or any other platform of your trust that you feel comfortable searching for those references and try to find something relevant that is close enough to that material that you as an artist are kind of envisioning for your piece of work. So for example, I think this one, while it isn't the same color, it has a lot of those elements that come from humidity. So I'm going to get the high res version. I understand you might not want to, pay for those credits and so on. So you have other platforms such as texture.ninja, which is free. Okay, and you can get high res images from that. I just like textures.com because again, I'm used to that. I'm comfortable with that. And I think this planning part of the process, which is going to bring you closer to how a material should look like. And from this over here, you're going to be able to compare to your end result and understand if you have many of the elements that define this material, the directionality, the color variation, the overall tone, and the feel and roughness and height and so on, but then I'm missing those details. So maybe some of these hidden, almost hidden screws, maybe some of this peeling or what's this, the splintering of the wood, maybe that sort of decoloration coming from humidity. So you want to make sure that whatever texture you choose fits within your concept. It's just a realistic version of your concept. So again, for the shingles, I would pretty much do the same. Go ahead and go for, I'm not sure if this is going to be on tiles. I don't think so. Probably on roofing and wood.
While you look at it,
just scroll down.
I also would like to add, maybe like the concept looks a little bit more towards fantasy. Now you can make something look realistic and yet maintain that kind of fantasy vibe it has. So the amount of moss, or let's say grass, it has on top, because I think that more than moss, it's grass. I've seen some houses in the Netherlands. I've pictures, never been there, but I've seen houses which have grass on the roofs, mostly because the weather is too cold, and basically, they use that to kind of have some extra layer. What he's showing in there, like what Javier is showing in there, it's also really good, but the reference is more live. So that's something you can do with texturing. You can do two textures, one that is only the roof and the other one has a lot of foliage, and you can add some 3D foliage on top to make it feel more like 3D. And you can use texture painting to paint the parts that don't have foliage and others that have.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you should get this from one substance tree node or one whatever, however you texture.
Exactly.
You don't have to get this with one. You get this from a base material and vertex painting or mask or blending with a mask some other way, RGB mask, whatever you want to use. You do the same here. You're going for the feel. That's what I mean, the feel, not that your end texture should look like this is a terrible reference. But I'm not saying your end texture should look like this, but that your end result of all those layers coming together, this is kind of you're breaking down your concept into how those specific materials look in a realistic setting, or what kind, if you want to go for a stylized, what elements are there to stylize in here? If you copy a concept one-to-one, you're pretty much tied by resolution, first of all, because a 3D model has things like texel density, that if you need to get closer, that's something that you're not going to see in the concept art. This is something that you're going to have to stylize from a realistic, because at the end of the day, stylization is derived from reality. We live in a world of reality, not of stylization. So everything you stylize something, you're getting this from reality. So I think it's a great starting point to understand what details you want. So this, you can stylize it easily by, I don't know, instead of drawing such a jagged circle, you go ahead and draw just a quick circle or whatever. I'm using my mouse, but this could look like a tree knot, and then you could, whatever. I'm not a stylized artist, as you can tell, but that stylization is going to come from a real world detail. The way you stylize it matters, of course. I hope that's clear. But what I'm seeing here that you're lacking, and that you can get a million miles of as an instant thing you should think, is, again, developing a good reference board that you can adhere to build your materials. Your modeling is really good. Also, one thing I noticed is there's a lack of delaserization, so that you have laser lines. They're all laser straight. So in these lines, they feel a little bit more jagged because of the details that you have on your sculpt. But in reality, there is almost no variation in this silhouette. And I think that's something that with organic and stylized and even with realism, but sorry, I was meaning with fantasy, or any style in 3D and in reality, you don't get these perfect lines. And I think I can see some twisting of those lines there. I think looking at the wireframe, I would tell better. But in reality, you don't see the wireframe. You see the silhouette. The wireframe is a behind the scenes, and you cannot rely on the behind the scenes for artwork. Artwork needs to look good by itself. But yeah, I can see you have a straight line. So one thing you should do definitely is think about making those lines a little bit more interesting everywhere. So if we go for, I don't know, let's say wood beam, you're going to see how that silhouette, both in micro scale, which is the smaller details, and on a macro scale or the larger details, you are going to get you're going to get variation. I mean, these are pretty perfect, some of them, but when you're going for something older, and be careful when looking for reference not to get 3D models or miniatures or anything like this. But in general, when you're doing these sort of organic materials, they bend and they develop imperfections with time. So even plaster, like pretty much every material will suffer from this. That sort of perfection, machine perfection, is something that also happens in reality. What I'm trying to say is that in 3D, it's a really effective way to make things a lot more interesting. Is to, again, run away from those laser straight lines. So, yeah, overall, this is a really, really good piece. Next time, I think these simple tricks, they're gonna make it better. And still, I think this is a really, really, really good piece. Okay. So this is more of a high poly. Well, I guess you were aiming more for like offline renderer.
Sorry, Javi, can you go back to the last post?
Last post?
Yeah, because I see Nikita is asking for something. Yeah, the render rather than the video. There we go. So Nikita is saying something. I'm trying to figure out where it is. Do I see the left tree shadow fall on a white mesh on the ground? At least it feels like that. Oh yeah, yes. You go up.
Sure.
Yeah, yes. Wait, go up there. You see? No. One below. That one. You see to the left? Yeah, in that one. You see to the left, there's a shadow that is over the plane.
Ah, yes. Here. Well, I mean, it's pretty, for me, it's pretty irrelevant. I'm not so much for, like,
this is a diorama.
We're describing, yeah, but we're describing like a grain of rice within a whole bowl of things that we could improve before this. I agree that this could be an easy fix, but there's many other things that to focus on, starting from, again, material definition and generating these interesting details.
That's right then.
But yeah, I mean, easy to fix. Probably just remove the plane and play with the exponential height fog settings. I think I actually don't dislike how that looks.
No, I don't. I think
it blends nicely with the background, and it's really not bothering me at all.
This render is really good. The one below.
This one, yeah.
If we added the
I like that again.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, I was just gonna say that if it has something strong going for it, is that it's generating really nice points of interest for a cool story.
Yeah,
kind of like what's going on here. I want to kind of go in and
I feel that's like an entrance for a Diablo 3 dungeon or the Diablo 4 dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
So
nice, very nice. But it's I know I didn't go for the full portfolio.
Yeah, let's just
go environments for games. This is your most relevant. And I think you can extrapolate that sort of look to everything else.
This one is really good as well. I really like this one.
Yeah. but what's the purpose of this piece? What's the purpose? Like, if you want to go for environment art for games, I think I would be safe to say that this might be a little overkill in terms of polygons and so on. It's a cool picture. It's a cool I think it's a cool result. You probably had a lot of fun with it, but I think it doesn't hold as much relevance as probably this other piece that you have, which is clearly tailored for games pipeline.
Exactly.
This is good. I really like the sculpting. I would say keep going in this direction. I tend not to provide feedback. I don't believe in feedback that is life changing. I think I can guide you a little bit towards a point where you're gonna be having more and more tools to understand how to make something better. But I think you're gonna have to put in a lot of practice, to be where you want to be, and that's completely fine as everyone else here. That's something we should all be comfortable with. But these two, they are definitely the right direction for getting where you want to go.
Great.
So good work. This is really good work.
So let's move to the next one.
Sam.
I also have extra when we finish with these ones, the ones that you have on the chat, I'm gonna send you more that are from the people on the YouTube stream. That just guys, the reason why we can't see the links is because there is a filter activated, and in order to remove it right now, I'll have to cancel the stream and get back to it. So for those who have sent your link on Discord in the Introduce Yourself channel, don't worry, I already see them. When we finish with these ones, we'll go to yours as well.
So let's see. I think you want me to do all the reviews. Is that right?
No, it is to do it both of us together.
Okay.
So
what I'm guessing is these people on the chat, you have already feedback on their portfolio, so maybe they would benefit more from.
Some of them have got some feedback with me. Okay. Others we didn't really go on to an overall feedback yet because they are students from the mentorships. So basically, yeah, it's kind of like we haven't get to that part yet. Yeah, Ruth, I mean, the interview with Javier that we had like some time ago, we had like, I think our interview, like the interview I did to you for a podcast that's going to be uploaded next month, if everything goes out well, was like 3 to 4 hours long, just So we try to make it as long as we can. Or I mean, no, we're not trying to force anything. If things cut 1 hour after we started, that's all right. If we can do more because we have to do more and we have the time for it, we're just going to take it. So don't worry about it.
Yep. Okay. So this is a very good piece.
Yeah.
It has a very interesting lighting, very interesting presentation. I can see how they've gotten really good core concepts from you, Ezequiel. Now I think, let's see, I might be missing a lot of that edge definition.
Yeah, I think
now,
that
if you look at this,
like overall, I think that the big shapes are there, but as you're saying, there's a lag in the definition of the shapes. And I think that coming from experience in substance designer, this is due to the amount of surface detail that we are adding that is way too strong. And we can see it in the one below, that one. Yeah, that one. Here we can see that all this amount of detail is really like kind of like, I don't want to say killing what you have done, but it's way too strong. In here, it looks good. Yes, in this one. But when you add color to it, it starts to get like too much, and making rocks is a little bit hard, especially if you can't find a really good reference to that specific surface you're taking up.
Yeah, I think in terms of surface detail, it could be justified by the reference. Like there's certain references where we're getting a lot of that surface detail. Now that doesn't mean that the surface that the detail itself is correctly balanced, because
Exactly.
like if we go on if we go on sorry, I don't know how to use PRF. What the hell? I made it transparent to mouse. 1 second. I think it's this one. Yeah.
Yes.
So if we look at how to build detail, we want to go large, we want to go then mid, and then we want to go small or surface.
Exactly. Yeah. And we have to balance them.
So yeah, exactly. You have a really good large detail and small surface. And I think in terms of defining medium, there's a few areas where we can go for medium. I think the easiest way to understand is that you have really good small and surface detail, because it looks like a rock and it looks nice and it has a nice color variation both in all areas. But when it comes to defining the large details, you did a good job, but you missed on the sharpness, which is 100% of the appeal of rock. A rock is very appealing the moment it becomes, the moment is well defined. I'm not using the word sharp, okay? I'm using the word defined. They're not the same thing. There's rocks that are very well defined, but they're softer, but they're well defined.
I would say kind of like cutting edges. Like those edges do feel like they have a hard cut in the reference. Yeah, Enrico knows how to do these things. I think this one is scanned though. Yeah, this is right. Yeah,
this one is scanned.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, you can see it in
fine. At the end of the day,
it is. At the end of the day,
it shows the shapes from different angles, and that's what I care about. But we can see here how we have defined and we have sharp. We have sharp, sorry, but again, we might not have defined. I don't think this is the same type of rock. So let me be fair, at least with the tools I choose. I think I'm going to just stick to reference rather than comparing it with other 3D work. The reason why I do that is because other 3D work might have small imperfections that when compared to reference, you might not have. I mean, imperfections in reality, they don't need to be the same as imperfections in 3D. When I mean imperfections in 3D, I mean the result is, while great, could have some errors in the way that the artist processed the references, for example. But yeah, let's not go too deep into this, because I think this is a great material. Next time I would make it a lot more focused in defining those large shapes a lot more. Again, they can be sharp or soft, but I think defining them better is going to be key, because I think you have a lot of noise that isn't allowing you, like in that silhouette, that there is like a lot of noise that isn't allowing you to get that sort of interesting rock shape with the combination of large lines plus shorter, more jagged ones, because we have that as well. We have this sort of jagged, rock, but at the same time we're combining that with large strokes. I think if I draw, it's going to be a bit more clearer, but we have this sort of combination of this, and this. I can't draw very well, but I think that combination is what makes organic interesting. So it's really good. I really like it. I was a bit concerned when I opened this and I saw this scale reference that this might be a little bit too large, but I think I boiled it down at the end that feeling just came from exactly this. When you have a very large rock, you're not realizing so much about the small imperfections. Larger groups of rocks, they're gonna be more about those long lines, and then they're broken up with maybe a little chip. But in general, you get those in this particular rock, I mean, you get those very long strokes. And in here, the size feels wrong precisely because you're having all that variation and you're not allowing for that large rock formation field to go through. There is some areas where you are, for example here, but this I think you should swap your medium details with your large details in this one, because you have medium and clean, and you have jagged and large, and I think it should be the other way around: clean, large, jagged, medium. But it's a really good piece. It's just something that is difficult to master. These concepts here, they're extremely difficult to master. So just keep them in mind, and make them part of your decision making. When you're adding a detail, think about, what group is this detail that I'm adding? Am I adding it to the large group, to the medium group, or to the small group? And then you can get those characteristics. So in this case, large means clean lines. Medium mean jagged. I think that's how you write it. And small surface is, what's this? What's small surface?
So
I don't know. You define that.
yeah. So if you go back to the reference,
sorry, one second.
Yeah.
So when you're defining large, make sure it's clean. When you're defining a mid shape, make sure it's jagged. So this way, there's no, like, if you constantly apply this logic, and every time you make a decision, you make it in a way that you think about what you're doing, which I don't doubt you were, by the way. I'm just saying that you should apply this concept. So again, when I make a large shape, I'm thinking, does this fill this gap? Does it fit inside of this characteristic? Sorry, you can go ahead, Ezequiel.
so in this case, I always try what you're doing in your reference that you are drawing. I always do that for visually big, small, medium shapes. So everything you see there is divided in big shapes to small shapes. So you have the big shapes, and on top of those big shapes, you have small ones. Like for example, that edge, like if you follow the edge you marked, like if you draw around the edge you just marked, yes, and you follow it till it stops like appearing. Let's say you start, go onward it, go to the top. Yeah, follow it till the top. Okay. Now get away from it. Now you see that's a big shape, but you have other small and medium shapes on top of the surface. There are those small blocks you see there. Yeah, exactly those. You have one or two of those ones, then you have other kind of variation, and then you have small ones that, like the one you have in like more to your left, in diagonal.
Mm-hmm. Yes, let's make that clear.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
You have to press apply. There we go.
Yep. So this is like more of a smaller shape while still in medium.
Yeah, more to the left. In the middle. Yeah, that one. That would be a small shape. Then you have others, like for example on the top. The thing is that with this kind of surface, as they are not really kind of like, they don't have much height. Yes, it's hard to actually identify that. So the best recommendation for these kind of materials, or for any kind of material actually, but when you're doing organic things and you need to start with your material, first try to go to Photoshop or PureRef and draw over your reference, trying to identify big to small shapes. Look the image from far away and start to draw the big shapes. Then you zoom in a little bit and you go for the medium. Then you do that again, but for the small shapes. Yeah, that's a way of doing it.
Also, large has different sizes, medium has some different sizes,
Yeah,
and small has different sizes. So you should try to make some sort of range. So say large is like 100 to like 70 to 100 is large, then mid is like 70 to maybe 35 in centimeters, let's say, and then small is everything from 0 to 35. I'm terrible at handwriting, but and then I guess that's not true. Small should be something like 10 to 35, and then everything below 10 is surface. I'm writing with the mouse. I'm terrible with that, but yeah. You just try not to add more layers of complexity to this, because you can very quickly make it very difficult. So this large to mid to small, you can easily get in between groups in here, but I think what's easy is to kind of define as if you're defining some sort of art direction booklet, in which you're defining factions. For example, I've seen this a lot. This faction uses this color, that faction uses that color. So when you're defining large detail for something like a rock texture, make sure that in general that detail follows certain rules. And in that case, again, I'm going to repeat, large is clean shapes, medium is a lot more like jagged, and then smaller shapes I think fall more within what you would add on a surface level. But this is a great piece. What's your intention with this work? Do you want to be a generalist, environment artist, material artist? Like, from the bottom of your heart, what is it that would make you very happy to receive an offer from tomorrow? Material artist. Okay, then I'm gonna check materials. Okay. So I think there is a really noticeable difference between these two. I'm not sure if I need to feedback these, because probably with the work you've done with Ezequiel, you already know what's missing here. But for me, it's about the variation. And again, I can refer to this. So just let it load for a second. I'm gonna show the mood board that I generated with Damiaxis with oh man, I'm forgetting the name. Damian. So yeah, Damien, exactly. So I'm missing reference here. There's probably been a process of looking at reference, because I can see the very interesting color variation that just doesn't come from normally at the very beginning. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't come from just memory, but I would go through this process of defining large, mid, and small before even starting. So what's large here? What's medium? And what's, small? And in this case, I would say, what does the brick look like? What does the grout look like? And what does the detail within those two look like? So every time you make a decision, like, I'm done with the brick. Does it meet that criteria of whatever I've gotten from this? So it for example, for this wood block, does it have those cracks? Yes. Does it have an enormous variation between those cracks, because each one of them is almost completely different from the other? Yes. Does it follow this rule where the center of that crack may be at the corner or off center from this brick? Yes. So what does the silhouette for this look like? So it's almost square, but if you look close enough, there is a certain amount of variation on that silhouette, almost all coming from the grout overlapping that material. So if you have to speak loudly, if you have to think in a loud voice, and that's actually a very effective way to self-feedback and try to understand a material. You're having a conversation with yourself, and you're making sure that you're not forgetting about anything. Because when you speak in a loud voice, or when you speak to yourself, you also need to make sure you understand yourself. So, and that actually, it feels silly, but it's a very powerful thing, because when you're explaining something, you're also understanding something most of the time. And that's going to help you understand your materials a lot better. But this is really good. Just maybe focus on analyzing those features inside of your materials, and you'll be making huge improvements in no time. But good work. I was really surprised, especially by this piece. This piece is really good, and I really love the lighting. I really love the different shades and
shadows and colors you see.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah,
let's try to do.
Also, be careful with stretching.
With
stretching with displacement. Rather than generating a black and white transition, try angling these rocks so that the transition between this rock and this rock is more like a 45-degree angle, more like a gradient. And this way you're gonna avoid all of these displacement artifacts that are very, yeah, see, you have almost no transition between these. So when you look at this from the side, you're gonna get this 100% of the time. So you need that plane if you want to avoid this. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Fakir.
Yeah, so let's move forward because we have a lot of portfolios to go over. Let's try to do one piece per like let's do a general portfolio review and then go for one piece.
Yep.
So we can go.
Yep, no problem.
Let's see in the chat.
I love this. So, Alex, this is Alexander D'Antuono.
Yes.
Really good. I really like this. This is a really effective way to showcase skills. You get something that everyone recognizes, and you give it your twist, and you do it really, really well. Yeah. And this is a great way to do that.
Yeah. Why haven't I seen this before? This is the first time I see it. I mean, this is actually really good. I love it.
Yeah, it is. It is really good. I would say Ezequiel is really good at lighting and rendering. Pay really close attention because this piece is really good as it is, but with just the right concepts. Like what I mean, for example, what I'm lacking here is using the full range of black and white when it comes to shadow and light. So let me get into Photoshop really quickly.
So yeah, I think in this case it's not. I think he's lighting. Well, let's wait till you get that one back. But his lighting is not bad actually. What it might be
it's
because
not bad.
You can see the rim lines to the left. It's actually like kind of like you have the face that is being illuminated, which is actually quite good. Now there's something I would like to do change is
it's not bad.
What is ahead, oh sorry. It's the okay, it's the light direction. So you see that on like if you go to the main image, yes, you have the right side of the character like has a really strong shadow. That means that the light is coming from the left. Now people read in a zigzag. Like if you draw a C on top of the una zeta on top of the render, yeah. If you draw one, you're gonna see people read from top left, yes, to top right, then diagonal to the bottom left, and then bottom right. Yes, so that's why we say it's like a seed. Now, the thing with this is that if you pull your lighting something similar to that, what's gonna happen is you're gonna be able to kind of like guide better the eye of the artist. So in this case, your light should be like your more strong light. Yes, the one that has like the strongest light and is pointing towards the character should be on your right side. And you should leave the rim lights that you have on that place as well. So that's the first thing. Now the second thing might be the roughness of the material. And when it comes to the roughness of material, it's really important. Yes, roughness, color, yes. Roughness, color, and lighting are three things that really go together for a really good presentation. Why? If you can see on your bottom left part and your bottom right part, the light is like bouncing off from there, but it does feel a little bit off. Like it feels like it's lacking a little bit of detail in those areas. Everything is like kind of like art aligned. Like it does feel like everything is part of the same, but I would try to make more of, you know, a more detailed roughness for more interests. Yes, so the parts that you are highlighting are not only a way to showcase just the overall shape, but there's also a way to showcase those details that maybe you can't see in other spots. Yes, so having those details in the roughness include generating contrast is going to generate a better lighting response from the software when making the render. Yeah, that would be something really important, yeah, because in some parts you might have even some really strong shadows and also losing some detail. So for the lighting especially, what I do is I always try to take 3 to 4 lights, yes, and then a skylight to just make the feel light of the darker areas, yes, and I try to control them. So my main light is going to be the strongest light, yes, that is going to generate the highest kind of reflection from the roughness if I have my roughness set good, and it's going to illuminate most of my artwork, yes. Then I'm going to have the rim lights, like the ones you have on the edges, that will have a kind of an intensity, but it's going to be barely touching the edges. Yes, the reason for that is for it to generate some really nice highlights, but not affect the rest of the result of a render. So Dali is saying, unfortunately I have to go. I would love for feedback next time. Thanks a lot for this. It's very useful. Thanks for you, Dalia, for coming, and I'll see you next time. We will be here next week as well, but who knows? Maybe with Nick and Marine up as well. So coming back to what we were talking on render, yes, something like this looks a little bit more good, like what Javier is doing. So there's something that many people maybe don't talk about when it comes to the render, and is the light direction that helps with the composition of the material. The material of the overall render. It doesn't matter if you're talking about material, environments, or even props. Having a really nice lighting that gives you direction, it's gonna add so much, because it's gonna be easier to read by your audience as well.
Yeah. So let me exaggerate this. I've got a few pointers. So originally, this image, we have to start looking at histograms. So if we look at a histogram here, almost all the information, there's information everywhere, except for almost the highlight. So this makes it very flat, very gray. If you look at any of my work and the way I like to do things, and also the reference that we've seen from Sam's material, there's a good amount of variation in this histogram. Now, when it comes to your histogram, a lot of the information is in the shadows, and mostly all the information is towards the shadows and midtones. So there's almost nothing that is standing out. Yes, you do have some highlights, but they're so small they don't even appear in the histogram. The moment we add some more shadow information, you can see how that histogram is starting to be a little bit more full, at least on the shadow parts. This means that we are generating more information here, but that's not as relevant. So the moment I make this grayscale and I add a little bit of contrast, that histogram now is kind of, it's a lot cleaner. But without looking so much at the histogram, let's look at the results. I made this image grayscale because color distracts a lot when playing with these things. But I realized quickly that the problem is that there is no focal point generated here from the lighting. The moment I introduce a little bit of contrast, you can see how right away we have this powerful tool that is lighting, that is helping us look here. So I'm looking here. Why? Because this is the brightest spot. And you can use this to your advantage. Again, using lighting, you can make that, let's see, let's get a new layer here. You can make that a lot more balanced. And now the focal point is somewhere towards here. So I think it's very important to understand that with lighting, we can and we should really point towards a certain point in the composition. We should use it as a tool to make the compositions and the models and the textures a bit more easy to read. You essentially telling what you want other people to be reading. So I think you should aim to generate more information everywhere. There should be some information in the shadows, there should also be some information on the highlights and some information on the midtones. So you're kind of where I'm going with all of this, because I think I'm not explaining myself very well, is that the moment you concentrate all your tones on the lower end or on the higher end or on the middle end of the spectrum, you are pretty much wasting one of the main tools of composition, which is driving the eye with lighting. So the moment I made the face brighter, you're looking there. The moment we bring the balance back to everything else, but we do it with contrast, again, maybe the less important areas, and I'm not saying this is less important because it's less quality, it's because it's already repeated here in this area. Maybe this is not so important to look, and we can use that to generate this sort of left to right gradient that makes this composition a lot more interesting. So I think you should always try to work with grayscale values until the point you're ready to establish a color palette. This is something that I tell my students all the time. If you're unsure about what colors to put in, you do a grayscale version of it first. Coloring this and making it more interesting is going to be a lot easier than making things interesting right directly in color, especially when you have such a different palette. For these things in particular, I remember reading when I started Dota 2 art direction or something like this, the character art guide, exactly. And
oh yes, I remember
the values,
these ones.
they're important. Like the gradient is, again, it's a method for you to look at the head. You don't want to look at the feet of a character. There's probably nothing interesting there. It's at the top of the character that the interest should be driven. And they generate their values, their palette. They drive their palettes from values, which is again grayscales. And if you're able to make it interesting in grayscale, that's one thing that you've got going on for you. So as you can see here, you don't even need color to make this interesting. You make it varied, and you make the player look where they want to look. So bright is going to drive us. Is going to drive us there.
Now I want to play some Dota.
And
I used to play League of Legends and Dota.
I'm so terrible at it, man.
No, it's alright, man. You're doing great.
But yes, no, I mean with Dota, I'm terrible at Dota.
Me too. I don't do nothing. I'm as useful as a tree. That's it. I just watch the game.
I like the style. I like the style. But anyways, like this is what I mean. They simplify palette, which is something that I would love to see here. You have these colors, and again, speaking honestly, which I think is what people need with feedback. I don't think you've put a lot of work into figuring out that palette and making it feel consistent with black and white. And I think this is something that it's easily the first step you need to take to improve like multi-material texture. So when you're doing just one material, one rock, one cobblestone, whatever, well, cobblestone could be more than one material, but when you're making like a rock material like this one, the most you're gonna have to worry about with color is like making it realistic to what a stone color could be, and then also working on surface color variation and so on. But when you're doing more than one material and more than one shade of color and so on, this is a crucial first step to defining a working color palette. Hope that made some sense and that it's helpful. And it's a great segue to this. I think you really do have the right elements, but it's balancing them out that you need to work on a little bit. So again, you have a very interesting texture here. My first impression was, wow, this is really cool, really creative, and you have that going for you. But But the way you combine those elements, looking at this closely, there's a lot of room for improvement there. So when I look at this door, I'm saying, wow, that reads like if I check individually those parts, like this reads like an interesting material and has a nice color variation and so on. But there is no balance when it comes to those details. There's detail everywhere, and detail everywhere becomes noise. So you have to
Exactly.
pay a lot of attention to this sort of noisy noisy approach to modeling. And if you condense, like, this works top to down, it doesn't work down to top. What I mean is, you can get a nice model with a large amount of large shapes and not so many mid and no small surface shapes at all. But the other way around, it doesn't work. You cannot get a compelling model with a high number of small details but almost no mid or large variation in there. There needs to be a balance, and that balance normally goes a little bit like this, like a pyramid. You want a lot of this, you want a little bit but still quite an amount of this, and you want very little of this. So again, if we make that distinction, this would be here, this would be here, and this would be here. But right now what you have is this. You have a lot, let me make that again.
The other way
You have a
around.
lot of small details, and you have, like, just pretty much 1, 2, 3, you have like almost, you have a lot of small details, and it just makes it noisy and difficult to read.
If
But
you want to
I
have,
think that I really
sorry,
wait.
okay,
I think, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I think that the moment you balance these things out,
yeah,
and you learn to balance those things out, you're getting a really, really strong core from your art. Like, you definitely have the hand. Now you just need to learn how to balance those things that in my opinion, fairly well. Fairly well to do, if that makes sense. Go ahead,
yeah.
Ezekiel,
So
sorry.
a really great rule I have in my head every time I go for micro details is the following: what makes a detail is that its aggregate value to the overall composition of your artwork. So if you make a detail be everywhere, it stops being a detail and starts to be part of a composition. So you need to know how to balance details to be something that add value and they are not everywhere, basically. As Javier was saying, right now you have a lot of shapes that are pretty much everywhere. Like the wood pattern is practically mostly the same in strength everywhere. So maybe like just by lowering the strength in some parts, increasing it in others, also adding some extra color variation in some other areas might just give this material this product what it is missing. Yes, or maybe it's not really well balanced. Regardless, it is a really great prop by itself. Yes, it just feels like maybe the details are way too strong in this case.
Mm-hmm.
So now,
I love this. This
yeah,
is so good.
I do
So
I
good.
like it.
Mm-hmm. This is also great. Okay, also in a portfolio, we need to, like, there's this thing that I find true, and it's about getting your strongest work in there, but not having like, if this is your portfolio and not social media. Like, in social media, I think it's great to show progress and learning, but when it comes to your portfolio, only reserve your best work. Okay, and it's definitely very important, very, very important, that you do it in an orderly way. So, good order. I think you have a strong starter with better lighting, and with this feedback, it could be an even better, an even stronger starter for your portfolio. But then we move on to I'm gonna speak just again. I'm gonna speak my mind. I hope it doesn't, but it's not as good. I think this is one of your worst pieces, so it has no place on the second place for your portfolio. And then you have a piece that is good, but again, it doesn't have a lot of value because it's untextured. And then you have what might be simple to a lot of eyes, but that I think is very difficult to get right. The feeling like making art for games was actually more difficult in the past than it is today, because we don't like they had such huge limitations that defining something and defining it properly was very difficult. So this is difficult to make and to make right. So I think this should definitely should hold a lot more value than this piece in your portfolio. And then this is a really good piece that I think again should be number 2. And then this feels again with the same problems that we mentioned to Sam, the stretching and so on. But not every practice piece I think should be a portfolio piece. And you have a portfolio that screams that this is a portfolio. This is not social media. This is not ArtStation. You're sending this to people with a specific link, and there's no way to find it other than you sending them this, right? So this is a portfolio in its most pure way. I mean, second to printing this and giving it to people in hand. So I would really curate it, is what I'm trying to say. Try to curate it and listen to yourself when that happens. But definitely put a lot of thought into what piece should be the first one, what are you the most proud of, what are you the second most proud of, third most proud of, and build your portfolio in that sense. And if there's something that you're just using as filling, don't use it. I prefer a 1-piece portfolio than a 3-piece portfolio where 2 pieces are fillers. Okay, so just I hope that if it's purely a filler, try to remove it. But this is really good work, and you should keep going hard because that was really good work. Okay, so can you send me the next portfolios, Ezequiel? Should we do maybe half an hour more and then just cut it when we reach that limit, whatever comes first? Did I cut out?
No. Sorry, I had my mic muted. Sorry. So let me find
Okay,
this.
no problem.
Oh. Kai had something really important to do. He's harvesting pickles now.
Oh, nice.
Let's see. So I'm gonna send you here. We have Bedant as well. So I'm gonna send you the next ones. Yes, I'm gonna send them in order. So we have Bedant here.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen this portfolio already. We spoke the other day.
And sorry,
so,
then we have
yeah,
a Banshee and
I really
the
like.
Riha.
Yep. Awesome. Daria. Daria,
Yes, Daria.
can you send them here, all of them?
Yes, and I'm on that as well. I'm on my laptop, so I don't
Okay.
touch the screen.
Okay, so let me.
I really like a lot Bedant's
I'm gonna
portfolio,
go
to be
over.
honest.
Yep, it's great material definition. It's really getting pushed down by a lack of contrast. So look at this. If you will look at this histogram, all the information is concentrated at the center. It's like if you look closely, it's a really good material. That base color, it feels almost scanned. And you really have good information, and you have a really good material definition. You have you've done a really good job here, but it's not eye-catching, and it's not eye-catching because this is a bad material. It's not eye-catching, not because of anything with the material itself. It's because of the contrast on that image. So again, I'm going to resort to black and white just to establish light and shadow, and because the colors, when I use levels or curves, they get extremely saturated. But if we distribute that histogram now a bit better, and we fall into having more information in the shadows and more information in the highlights, again, just to illustrate this better, let's go to black and white. This is gonna change. This is gonna change the palette slightly, but I just want to make sure blues don't get so crushed and so burnt.
Mm.
Uh,
Another thing, while
I'm
you
gonna
are at it, yes, I think the material is good, but we are lacking a level of interest in the material. So all materials, when I make my materials, what I always try to do is to have a free, like a rule of three. So I always try to have 3 different objects or kind of surface specifics that would add a value to my material. So this is a floor, and a floor, or like a floor surface. So a floor surface has a lot going on, yes. And when I say going on, is like it has a lot of story, yeah. Meaning a floor like this would have maybe some gum on it, because people throw it to the ground and step of it. They will have leaves on it, they will have dirt. So there's a lot of extra things that we can add, yes, to it to make it more interesting, you know. And of course, none of this is gonna work without what Javier is doing right now. That I think, yeah, that's going really great. That is adding a really nice lighting and contrast to generate more depth and interest in the material. And one of the bigger takes on actually making a really good, lighting, is because it helps you reinforce the story you want to take and the feeling you're transmitting with it as well. So the lighting that he just made, you can bring it up if you want, is really, really, really good. I love that one. Look at all the variation he took out by just doing some post-processing in Photoshop. It looks really
but
interesting.
this shouldn't be done. It shouldn't be done in Photoshop. Just let's make it clear that for if anyone is wondering if this is the way I would do that, no. This is just a tool for me to visualize the changes that I would do in Designer if I needed to change this material. But let me explain what we did here. So if we look at this before, again, in Grayscale, it's a terribly powerful tool. Let me just bring up some examples of how good we can get a composition just by enforcing Grayscale values. So if we look at, I don't remember the name of this photographer. So let me look for this. This is the exposure. Yeah, I don't know. Let's get black and white photography, because he might like the power to make something interesting purely out of Grayscale is tremendous. We get a lot of contrast from, and by the way, just a little thing, if you want to get really like a really big push in your art quality, start photography, because it's one of the best ways, and it could be as cheap as being free. You can do it with your phone, but it's a really good way to break down and to start looking at the world. I look more closely since I am a photographer than before being a photographer, because with being a photographer, I'm looking for stories, I'm looking for a picture to take, and I'm looking for interest. And I find interest in things that I wouldn't find interest before. So for example, if I'm looking for this picture to take of a rocky surface, I might look at that material definition without noticing, because that's something interesting. So in short, you learn to appreciate the world around you in a much better way. So if we look at black and white photography, it's a really powerful tool to generate interesting results. So why not use that in 3D? That black and white is giving us already enough information to make this interesting. So black and white is always the first layer of interest. Is the difference in values or in grayscales is the most powerful tool to generate interest. So just by adding these levels, you can see how we've brought up a lot of that variation that you had already in your material. Okay, and then color on the top is just a touch. It should never be the main driving point. Color should never be the main driving point. I think, at least it's what works for me, and it should actually be more about values. And this is interesting, and this is not so interesting because of values. And I think this is a theme because I've seen your portfolio before, Vedant, and this is a theme that's recurring throughout your portfolio. And if we look at this palette, I'm quite sure, but I wouldn't put my hand on the fire, that if I make this black and white, all these colors, all of them, they're going to be very similar shade. I'm right on the spot there. This is exactly the same gray. Now, this isn't an accurate way to make grayscale, but we got almost exactly the same color. The best way to get the values is reading this. So this is a 60, sorry, RGB hue saturation balance. Hue saturation, what's the B? The value is with a V. So brightness, it's brightness. So the brightness is 62%, and we're on 70% here. So we're on very close ranges. As you can see, we don't have a lot of contrast between these colors. So if just by making this, for example, that tone a lot more bright or a lot more dark, and bringing that color after, that material now has a lot more interest to it, only because of color. Now you can differentiate those features better. So one really important thing to look at here is precisely that, contrast. And it doesn't need to come from the lighting. It can also come from it needs to come from many different places. Sorry, it can come from lighting, can come from texturing, but it definitely is something that you can't ignore anymore. So you have really good material definitions. I wouldn't question that this is a tile. I wouldn't question that this is like a pavement or a concrete floor tile. I wouldn't question that because it looks like that material. But the next step is to, like I say many times, is to improve on reality. So reality sometimes is boring. This looks realistic. It does look realistic, but it's boring. Reality can be extremely boring. Black and white photography has a way of making reality not so boring. So you need to take that next leap as an artist, which is improving on reality, finding a way to improve on reality. So if your reference is telling you these are the colors that I have, these are the colors that I have, then you improve on reality by making those values a little different. Also, color palettes, they're really important. It doesn't matter how interesting you make your grayscale, the color palette is extremely important. So those colors, they need to work well together. And in this particular case, that sort of yellow that you have, kind of fights too much with everything else. So a palette, I think one of the purpose of a palette is bringing balance to the amount of colors that you have. So again, if we go back to looking at the Dota 2 guide, let me just see if I can. Yep, there is this pizza, let's call it, and there is importance of color. So the color palette is not, I have the same amount of each color in my image. It's about what's my dominant color and what's my secondary and tertiary. So primary, secondary, and tertiary. And when you establish that palette, the primary color it's not because it's used the most, because we can all agree that purple is the most predominant color here. It's also how much, like, that predominance is how much that color draws the attention, which is what I'm trying to say here. So if you make that tertiary color, even if it's the least seen color, if it's fighting too much against the other palette, it could easily become the main color even if it's not the most present color, in the way you're gonna analyze that image. I mean, so making that a little bit more interesting by making sure that those colors aren't fighting with each other is also going to take a leap on that improving on reality kind of discourse. So I'm not sure how to.
So in the meantime,
look for
while
that.
you move forward, this one, next one up is Banshee Bansai. Banshee Bansal. Sorry, my bad.
Yep, just a second. I want to.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, but
I'm
here,
warning for the
like, if
for
we
the chat.
balance-
So there we go. So she's here for her
Yeah.
feedback.
Yep, all good. So if we balance that out, I mean, I would make this darker. I mean, I think I can pretty much maybe do something like, I don't know, just quickly thinking here. Sorry. Okay, so I think Control A, Control Shift, Control I. Okay, and then this black and white goes. Like I'm killing a lot of the color here, so that's probably not the best way to move forward about this. Yeah, let's get those blacks. Yeah, I don't know how to do that, but like quickly without the source material. But I mean, I could be here for 10 minutes getting that right to convey the example. Obviously, I think that wouldn't be right. But if you balance the grout, you're instantly getting a much better material. Also, I've just noticed this. This makes the material a million times better. Try bringing this outside of the corner. Like if you think about a composition, you have a number of points which are called the thirds. So let's get those thirds. I mean, there's many ways to compose an image. It doesn't need to be precisely and only done with the thirds. But it's okay to have, like the way I do it is I have my detail inside of this box. Because when we have something too much on the corners or outside of that box, then unless it's very intentional and very well made, the safest bet is to get that detail within this box in some way. So you can pretty much get it over here, and that specular here is going to be a lot more noticed than what it is right now. Okay, let's get Evanshi.
Yeah, she's up. She's let me see. She wrote it here. She's aiming to be a prop artist in the game art industry. In this case.
Yeah, I know Evanshi.
Oh,
she's a student of mine.
Yeah, we have a mixture
so
between our students here right now.
Yeah. But sorry, just to finish. Vedant, really good work, man. I really like that. I enjoyed reviewing your work. You are very, very close to a really, really good path. So great work. So Evanshi, I mean, I love your work.
Yeah.
I think your work is very nice. It has this sort of feel. It has this feel of realistic, gamey props, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
I feel this is something I'll
like
see.
Game assets.
Sorry, this is something I will really see in a Half-Life game. Oh, the chairs.
Yeah, exactly. What chairs? Sorry. Yeah.
The next post.
So I like it very much because of let's take the mouse for example. I'm not sure how much this is due to lighting, but look at this gradient. We start with yellowing, we end up with a lot more white, and these sort of gradients, they make the whole world of a difference to me. I love them. I would pay more. I would never ignore this process. 1 second. I would never ignore this process. If I remember correctly, I had one of these and these are gray on the inside. This should be a completely different material. This should be rubber, so that it kind of sticks or has some traction with the table, and it kind of rolls so that the mouse can move. So this needs to feel like that. It feels like plastic, not like rubber. So the detail matters a lot. Again, you have a lot of detail, and you've done a really good job, but it's just that next step of detail that you could easily achieve if you just take some time to make this process. So okay, I have this mouse, this reference of a mouse, not your game model. You have a reference of a mouse from top and down, and you're analyzing those materials and finding examples in textures.com or whatever, textures.ninja, Polyhaven, Megascans, whatever. Probably not Megascans, because that's processed. But you're looking for photo-based reference on those materials and how they behave. And then you break it down in this way. So this is this material, this is this material, this is that material, etc., etc. And you have done a really good job at defining metal. You've done a really good job at defining plastic and giving it a really cool and really effective, because you don't need all this wear and because you don't have it pretty much. You don't need all that edge wear and you don't need all that stuff to make that mouse very interesting. Maybe you've gone a bit overboard with the scratches. This is one thing that I like to do, is thinking about why. So again, defining this process, this sort of theory or logic, it can and should be applied to everywhere. Like just as a refresher, when we were defining large shapes, we were saying what makes a large shape. So it makes it clean. So now every time I make a large shape, I'm questioning if it fits within the narrative of a large shape. So I'm going to do that with every detail I add. And this is difficult because many times we just grab a photo that contains a lot of details and we put it there and we call it a day, because like 90% of what we're getting from it fits, right?
Yeah.
But then once you finish, you should think, how are these scratches made? Am I adding them there because they make sense? I don't know, someone is throwing keys at this computer and they get scratched, or you put this computer in your pocket and it gets scratched with the keys? No, right? It doesn't fit any narrative in which you would get these sort of scratches. So then why do you have them there? This is something that you should be asking yourself.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the details, this is great because you have this sort of color variation. You have this sort of larger spots and details, and I don't know. I just love it. It has this baked feeling to it. This light bake. This sort of, you took a picture of this computer from all these different sides and you just pasted those photos in there, and it has that feeling to it. But at the same time, I can tell how this was something that you built in layers using Substance Painter regularly. So it's very well textured.
Yeah,
is what I'm trying to say. I like it very much. It could have more storytelling, but I don't think it's something that you want to have for this one in particular. It's already good as it is.
Sorry, go ahead, for these cases, because I've seen something similar in one of the next posts that we'll get to that one now. No, the gun one. But when you are trying to make the texture for a prop, specifically in this render, that one we had before. No, the other one, this one. So it's really imperative the story you want, especially if you're working on props. It also happens with materials, but with props, there's a story. You have the chance to tell the story in a way that many other people can't tell it. Yes. So it's a good game I have for these kinds of things is, okay, what kind of story do you want to take on this one? Who's using a gun? Who is using the PC? Like if you go back to the computer could have gotten some stickers. How old is this PC? Is it really old or is it barely new? Yes, despite the of the model. So those things are gonna give you some kind of insights into wherever you wanna go in one direction or the other. You can add stickers. Okay, those stickers. What are those stickers gonna be? Are they just gonna be regular stickers, or are they gonna be stickers from someone in particular? Like for example, let's say this is the computer from a child, so just gonna have Hello Kitty, Iron Man stickers, things like that. You know, whatever a kid wants to have in their computer, a Barney sticker, something related to that, and that's going to tell a story that we are going to be able to see. Now, when it comes to the gun, yes, in particular, I'm going to give you. Wait, let's Javier finish.
Yeah, just a second. I just want to see if this could actually be improved with. No, no, and I'm gonna tell you why this doesn't work this time. It's because you have like this PC. It screams Office.
Yeah.
It does. I mean, I know it's supposed to be from a bank, and it's great. It screams administrative type of PC.
Yeah, I feel
and
in the
you get that
Matrix.
sort of lighting in those places. Yeah, it feels like that, right? Like you're going to this office that is extremely well lit, and there's almost no shadows everywhere, and that's why this is working so well. If this was like, I don't know, something you used at a photographic studio, and in a photographic studio you would get like a lot of lights and shadows just to be more artistic with your lighting, then this wouldn't fit. But because it's supposed to come from a setting where this sort of very flat lighting occurs naturally in that setting, not naturally in reality, but anyways, it just fits. And the moment I took it and I made it darker and I made it look out of place. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
I'm going a bit crazy with the contrast, but this is the contrast. It makes it, well, we could argue about interest or lack of interest, if we're adding or we're removing, but we're kind of taking it away of that clean, sort of almost dentist, you know, cleanness. Obviously, you get your storytelling, because if not, you would get like a textured feeling. But yeah, it's coming from the place it should come from.
Yeah. Now, if we go
And
back
about
to
the
the
storytelling
weapon,
that you were saying.
yeah, in this one. So, first would be like, wait, because I'm also looking at it on my screen because I can see it better. So, first thing would be, if you see the cannon of the gun, it has this pattern where I can see that you use a grunge leaks in there front of you. Yeah, over there. Yeah, you see that it has these kind of leaks on the sides. They look good, but what happens? It happens what we've been talking about before, where it feels too much repetitive because it's detail that is everywhere. So this kind of details, it's good to have them masked as well, so they are not everywhere. Because in fact, in another shot, and I feel it's the one on top of this one, Javi, the first one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a second.
Yeah,
Yep.
no problem. So you're covering a really nice detail with that grunge. You can see that you have added directionality to it, like from side to side, and then you add this grunge that goes from top to bottom, and that's covering your overall detail. So making a mask is really important because it's gonna allow you to make like those details blend together into something more organic. Also, trying to look for maybe a specific story on why are we having, you know, these kind of leaks over the weapon. A weapon like this, most probably, like given the story it has and so on, might have more like kind of like directional scratches or fingerprints, you know, on top of it. That is something you read really good and really great with the bullets that you can see there. Now, on the wood hand, maybe I'm feeling that it could have more work, maybe. Like, I feel like there's a high contrast between the wood and the metal, mainly because of the roughness and the color, you know. I feel that if the wood hand would have been like a little bit more darker and reflected, with some areas being damaged as it happens in the weapons that have been actually being used, it would have added so much extra value to it.
So also something that I want to add, a really good way of building a flow into a texture is by following the directionality of the elements. So I feel like this grip right now it's kind of flat. It's projected from the top down and there's like no directionality. That can happen and that is fine, but when I texture assets that have like longer axes and they're pretty much not square and so on, I tend to give my details direction. So in this particular case, you can see how your let's see, your grunge, it's all going down.
Yeah.
but you have a very long axis on this
Yeah.
gun, and this is generating noise. You're making a crosshatch type of design. So what I mean is that if you make that detail flow with the longer axis, and then even if you want to really go far, curve the details at some point so that you mimic some sort of brushing, then this is going to accentuate a lot the shapes of your object. There is no way to go wrong about this. If you follow the direction, there is natural interest, and there's the avoidance of drawing too much attention to a certain detail because it feels out of place. So if I draw a line and I draw it here, that you can see that line. So if that line is a mistake or is something that could slightly be difficult to justify, then it can become a mistake, is what I'm trying to say. If I make that line follow this curve over here, all of a sudden it becomes a little bit more difficult to notice. And this is how you build surface detail. How I build surface detail, at least. I build it in the direction that of the longest axis. And when I do that, I'm able to get good material definition and good direction. The only the only exceptions, and there's probably a lot more, but some exceptions to this is, for example, when you have when that is very methodically calculated. Like, for example, in this case on the blade that I made, this is because of how these blades get machined, and this is something that I saw on my reference. Getting those lines in the direction of the blade would have been a much safer decision, because you're suddenly not breaking the composition of the blade. You're not breaking the flow of the blade. So it works here because I'm probably just used to it. But I can definitely say that this doesn't work here because it just breaks the flow. So it's a really good way. This what I'm saying here is a really good way to feel to generate that detail. So rather than building this detail in this direction, you should aim to build it in that direction. And then you're getting this sort of composition inside of your texturing. And this is why edge wear usually works so well. It's because it's following the directions and the shapes of the model. So when building every layer, try to respect that. It's a really, again, until you're comfortable with breaking that rule, it's a really good way to not draw attention in a negative way in the surfaces that you're generating. Now, I probably didn't do that following the contour because I didn't think about that idea. But if I could choose and go back and change it, I would probably follow the contour of my blade and generate these lines more of in a sort of, let's say, Damascus type of pattern, not with the color variation, but in the lines themselves. I think when it comes to material definition, understanding how the material is made is really important. And you have this sort of bluing all around that kind of breaks it for me. Probably coming from the lighting, it could be. But this, in general, I like it very much. I just don't think it's your best piece. I think you have really strong concepts here, and obviously this is older. And I can what is really good about your portfolio, what I can see from your portfolio, is that you are progressing really well, because this is feedback
Yes.
that probably, other than the directionality, this is feedback that you probably already know and are already keeping into consideration when making your models.
Yeah, I do.
But if you look at wood, why is wood that interesting? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you can really see the progress from one artwork to the other one.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So when we look at wood, this is very interesting, and again, we're not breaking the flows of those lines. And this is, if you were doing something the other way around, that would be not looking as good. With wood, it is very logical to do it like this, because we follow naturally when doing woodworking, you're following the grain of the wood, and so on and so forth. So why not doing that here? And again, not trying to look for a positive effect, but rather avoiding a negative effect. So it's kind of like being quiet, like quiet details that work, but they don't aim to stand out, if that makes sense. So really, I really like your portfolio, Evanshi. It's really good. Um, let's just keep building on it.
Great. So we are running
What would
out.
you do in a situation? Oh,
Sorry.
sorry.
No. Go ahead. Finish with that one, and then I'll go ahead.
Yeah, so no, sorry. So Nikita is asking, what would you do in a situation when building detail according to the longest axis would be against the use of the item? It depends. I mean, I'm talking about base detail here, not storytelling detail. So when we look at the like I don't know, gun machining, I'm probably on the FBI list already. But when we look at manufacturing of guns,
Go
like
to
let's
images. I
get
think it's gonna be.
think this is the way. I'm writing that incorrectly. I'm sure. Why do I have such issues with?
Names.
No, actually, I. Oh well, sorry. Oh man, sorry about that. If you're watching, um, but if you look at the
Oh
blog
yes,
post
this guy.
and you look at the guide for modern gun texturing, it's talking about this and understanding how things are made. So if like again, something being realistic doesn't mean it's interesting or that it works. You need to improve on reality, but for in order to do that, you have to know very well what you're doing. What would I do, which is the question, in a situation where building detail according to the longest axis would be against the use of the item? Say for example, we have this direction on the machining. I would definitely start by experimenting with making this part of the model feel washed out and kind of use that detail to build edgeware, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Or should I explain it in a different way? So pretty much remove all that detail from the center here, or make it very much less apparent, and just leave it to the edges. When you leave that to the edges, again, you're building that sort of outline which
Yeah,
follows the
highlight.
direction of the item. So it could be, yeah, exactly. It could be a good way to start experimenting with that improving of reality.
Perfect. So guys, we're almost out of time right
We
now.
have one more.
One more.
We have
Okay.
one more portfolio.
Yes.
Let's take a look at it. And this way we've got all of them looked at.
Perfect. In fact, we have
Okay, so
we have 3 more.
3 more.
Yeah, I think it's
let's
reaching
just get
for
the
more.
one you sent.
Yes, the last one, and we're gonna have the rest on another session.
I mean, yeah. So Daria is also one of my students. So if you want Daria, I can just do a private portfolio review, and we just. I mean, I don't want to be unfair in that regard, but if we have to go, I don't want to keep you here.
Oh, it's all right.
Ezequiel.
Let me see.
Okay.
Because I think that. Let me check. I think most of these, yes, they are. Yeah, most of them are prop artists from your students as well. But again, so this is Daria. We have 2 more portfolios after Daria.
Okay. Any portfolios that aren't my students, can you send them here so that we are fair with the people that took the time to join and wait? My students, guys, we can do a private portfolio reviews tomorrow or next week.
Yeah, we can do this again. There's no problem.
I don't mind that.
So I think
Yeah, but,
near Stain. I don't know if I think he's from my community specifically. So I'm gonna send him yours.
I think that's not one of my students.
Yeah.
No, this is not one of my students.
And then I have Angel Aranda, who is a prop artist.
He is one of my students. Yeah.
Great.
So he is. Okay. Okay, so it's a strong start. We've got this wow element,
Yes.
which is
I,
great.
I, I do like a lot his materials, to be honest.
Yep. Okay, so other than what I've already mentioned about contrast and about color balance and so on, I think it's important to be careful with post processing. So
Yeah.
you have a lot of really good and clean lines, but you're burying them under
Yeah, tons of
chromatic
post.
aberration.
Yeah, too much maybe.
Yeah. So I can't process the natural colors and the natural color variation that you have here
Mm.
due to the very strong colors in the lighting. And it's also not natural colors. Like if we had we have blue, but then suddenly we have this yellow from the bottom. And what happens more naturally is that this blue, the colors would be inverted. You get the more directional light coming from the sun, which is more orange at the top, and then more of the skylight bounce lighting, which is more blue coming from the bottom. So this feels like a bit of an unnatural lighting, while very creative and definitely not looking wrong. It's just not allowing me to look so much at the actual colors that you have.
Yeah, but
When it comes
regarding
to
regarding that, there's
yep, go
something
ahead.
really important that in this case, just because we are talking about materials, and I know that your portfolio is full of materials as well, and you're aiming to that, is the tiling. And regarding that, you try to make it not too much visible. There's still a line there where you can see the tiling breaks in the top of the left one and in the bottom of the right one. You can really see the line there.
Yeah, right here.
So
And also here.
exactly. So those kind of things are things that we need to fix, because when we're doing materials, especially for production, having a tiling is no good because your materials will have to tile. Yes, this is not part of a prop itself. It's a material that might be used in an environment. And if we have such a strong line, that one where we see the tiling, when we use this in an environment, it's just gonna look unnatural, and it's just gonna make the player get out of the world by realizing that he's like in a, let's say, made up world in a way. I don't have the right word for this. Like losing immersion.
Yeah, there are errors on. Yeah, exactly. There are errors and they break immersion.
Exactly.
So when it comes to the histogram, you're missing out on highlights a lot. You have a good amount of contrast, a lot of grayscale, like mid grays information, which is nothing necessarily wrong. But the moment I bring those highlights, we're we're making a big difference also in material definition, because all of a sudden I can start to read these sort of highlights here on the edges. So when it comes to color, again, try to go for something. You can be creative. You can definitely go for creative, but you're specifically using colors that are very tied to the way we read the world. You're using warm versus cold, but you're using them. You're inverting their use, and it for some reason breaks breaks the readability for me. But this is great. It has a lot of potential to be really really great. Let me get into the most interesting ones, the ones that I find more interesting.
Sorry, this one I think it's a really great material, but we are missing in the presentation in this one, as we were talking before. This has so much potential, I feel.
Yeah, I agree. I agree fully. We're missing shadows, first of all. So I'm not sure how to do that fast, but we're kind of missing that sort of. Yeah, this feels like a pre-scan, almost like a pre-scan, something that you would you would take a photo, you would do it in a very flat lighting, and you would use a polarizing filter. You would polarize the light, make sure that you're not capturing any strong light, any strong shadow, so that you can process the scan. So I think you can really work on that department of lighting, because you really have very strong concepts when it. This isn't a scan, is it? Because it feels like the amount of color variation in some areas. It definitely feels heavily photo based, at least, if not
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, in fact,
Can.
there's something I've seen from other artists I've worked with that are juniors, that when they're making their materials, they make the material with their height by themselves, but then for the base color, they kind of like put the image they are taking this from. Not something
Yeah.
really useful, to
So
be
he's
honest.
saying
Yeah, he used sampler, so
he's
he
saying
looks
this is
like
photo
scan.
scan. Okay, so without getting into the quality of the artwork, I think you should definitely work on the description of the work, because if people like, here's what could happen, and I don't find that a very fun position to be in. You send a portfolio, you impress, but then you get to the interview stage, and they're gonna ask. They have certain expectations. Like it already was a bit suspicious. Not that this is bad that you were doing photo scan material, but I was suspicious that this wasn't like a fully original node tree of creating every aspect from scratch, right? So you get to this interview, people don't catch on this, and suddenly you've set a high level of expectations, and you get the question, what is your process to this? And you apply to a material artist position, and they're not precisely looking for canned materials, but for 100% procedural approaches to materials, for example. Because you haven't defined this, but you are presenting yourself in a certain way, um, it's going to generate like a pushback. Because when I have expectations, I'm just speaking about my psychology. When I have expectations of something and those expectations they're broken, I tend to get let down much more strongly than if I didn't have no expectations at all, or if my expectations were correctly adjusted. So if you adjust my expectations by saying this is a photo scanned material, um, or explaining briefly your process, like I think everyone should do on the description of their artwork in ArtStation, then those expectations, they're set, and you're not going to let anyone down because not being clear on the way you present your work. I think it's a really easy fix, and I think it's also very valuable that you don't leave these boxes um, closed or empty. Sorry. So in this particular material, I think the way you processed it um, was, yeah, there we go. So do we have this here? No, we don't.
No,
so
we don't.
This is easy to understand that this is a photo scanned material. I think you went a bit too heavy with the noise. So again, when we get this pyramid, where is it? When we get this pyramid here of large, mid, and small surface details, and we invert it, like this becomes, it's not a pyramid anymore. It's a square, and it's just all detail. Um, and it's not appealing, and it feels broken. Again, easy fix. I can see from your maps that you've derived like two different types of normal maps. One of them much stronger than the other one. So 100% try to play with that balance to achieve a bit of better results. So I'm curious to see, yeah, materials that you've done from scratch. Is there any particular question that you want solved here for your portfolio, Aki? Anything in particular that you want me to look at more than anything else? Takes like 10 seconds for
Yeah,
that
it takes some time
piece,
to get the message.
Nope. So nothing specifically. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. So this is the thing. you have like, what do you want to do? You want to be a material artist, then you have to let's see. You want to be a material artist, you want to showcase your ability to make materials from scratch. So when you set these materials as your main ones, and I can now, without reading the description, I can very well tell which ones are scanned, dang, and which ones aren't. um you kind of have a very unbalanced um quality level. So
Yeah.
I think I mean, it's difficult to say. I hope you're not getting me wrong. But I think if you want to be a material artist, you you can play and experiment and have fun with photo scanning, because it could be really a really great way to start understanding materials and to use them and get um, uh, hyper realistic results fairly quickly. But I think that if you want to be a material artist, the the 99% of your content here should be original artwork in the way that it starts from scratch. You could easily misinterpret that and think that photo scanned is not original work. That's not what I'm saying. I think we're all in the same page when it comes to what I mean, hopefully. Um, but I think you should build your materials from scratch, if that makes
Yeah.
sense, and aim to showcase those things
So yeah, the
a
main
bit
reason
more.
for that is because if you do the materials by your own hand, you're gonna find more problems to solve that usually photoscan materials don't provide, because it's photoscan. There's a software that's doing most of the job for you. So by doing the things on Designer and trying to make the material completely by yourselves, you're gonna have a way to understand how things work. You're gonna be able to explore more and even make more mistakes. Yeah. For example, wait, can you go a little bit up? Yeah. So example here, just by go a little bit down. Sorry, to the normal map. So here, for example, I can already see in the normal map image why things are happening. I also know that because I work on Designer for a long time. I have these mistakes by working with it, and that's because you have a low rate bitmap, and it creates those kinds of artifacts. That means that there's something you exported or imported into Substance Designer or change it inside Substance Designer to go from something that is 16 bits to something that it's 8 bits, creating these kind of mistakes that you see there.
Yeah, this is yeah. I think this is coming more from displacement map that has been baked without some smoothing or displaced on top of a very square. I think we're seeing polygons, not pixels.
No. That's the thing. When the bitrate of a height map in a material is low, close to 8, or has been in 16 bits and then turns to 8, it starts to generate in all the images this kind of artifacts. And the height map is actually quite strange, but what it happens is that it has less information. It starts to create some stepping. Yes, kind of like steps between the different values of grayscale. That's why when you go to the other one, the one he is doing sorry, my brain got
vertex painting.
Yeah, vertex painting. You see that there's some really serious stepping between the shapes. Yeah, those are from the normals, and the other shapes come.
This is kind of a, how do you say, like a chicken and an egg type of problem, like what comes first? Because if you use that displacement, like I'm seeing this, and by sculpting height maps, so it feels like this. I'm not sure if this is the sculpture or what, but it looks clean over here, but then all of a sudden it isn't clean anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if by displacing the mesh with a height map that doesn't work, you got that and then you baked it out and you just carried all over to the rest of the maps or whatever. But in any case, I think this artwork wasn't scanned. It's more like a fully original. And you're actually good at this. Like and I think you should totally go ahead and pursue
Yeah.
this this route, because it's gonna teach you a lot more than just scanning materials.
Yeah. Indeed.
You can definitely develop a career from just scanning, but that's a different path. That's, I think, not what we're doing here with FMA. I think I mean, this your community, not mine, so you should, you know, but but I think that this is something that you're good at, and that if I have one comment about your portfolio, is that I'm missing that sort of artistry that, when really taking the time and looking into it, I see that you have. So that I think you should definitely be chasing that, and just maybe leave scanning. If you want to be a material artist, leave scanning for experiments, and until at least you can use them. I mean, probably I'm just talking shit, honestly. But yeah. No, not leave scanning for scanners. I mean, it's weird because I don't want to throw shade on scanning. It's not something I want to do. I've scanned in the past. I love photo scanning. It's really fun. It's a really fun activity to do with friends. But the reality of it is, it just doesn't show you as much about art as the core discipline with material art, which is the one that it seems like you want to be showcasing. This discipline is going to show you a lot more about art for games. So at the beginning in a portfolio, I feel like in a portfolio, sorry, in your career as a learner, you probably want to focus your effort in something that is going to teach you a lot more about art and the core about making art for games, if that makes sense. Not sure if we're...
Sorry, I just got a message from my boss and I got a little bit stuck there. So yeah,
Yeah, no problem.
so let's end it here, guys. Thanks for coming today. Thanks to you, Javier, for coming as well. I hope you have a really great time with us today, and most especially that you learn a lot of things. We're gonna be trying to do more of these things during the month, and try to do something like a little bit more variated, where we can also interact with you and help you to learn and understand new things that maybe you have doubts on. Now, I don't want to say it for sure, but next week we're going to have another edition of the Game Art Uncovered podcast, and we might have, yes, senior material artist Nikki Marinov as well. Javier, if you want to join us, you're more than invited to. We're going to be talking about maybe some specifics inside the game art industry, but more related to big studios. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you next week as well.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Ezequiel. I'll see you soon.
You're welcome, man.
All right.
See you.
Bye-bye.